of April 21st, 2026. As a reminder, if you are joining this meeting via Zoom, you can still make public comment. During any public comment portions, attendees may use the raise your hand feature and will be called upon and unmuted when it is your turn to speak. If joining by phone, use *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute and unmute. We also have Spanish interpretation services available in person and via Zoom. On Point Language Solutions is in the back left corner of the room if anyone needs assistance with interpretation services. And On Point will now provide information on how to receive interpretation services if you need them. Good evening, Victor.
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor, esteemed council members, Mr. Chittister, Ms. Rodriguez, Ms. Bazano, all city staff, members of the public, Victor Hernandez, Spanish interpreter. Buenas tardes. Les queremos dejar saber a todos los miembros del público que se les proporcionará interpretación en vivo de toda esta reunión en español, y para poder acceder lo que son los servicios de interpretación por Zoom, o sea, con una computadora o una portátil, usted tendrá que hacer clic en lo que es un icono de un globo, es decir, un mundo que aparecerá al fondo de su pantalla, y después seleccione el idioma español. Ahora, si usted está usando un teléfono inteligente o una tableta, busque lo que es el menú de 3 puntos, seleccione lo que es el idioma y después, por último, tendrá que hacer clic en Done o Listo. Ahora, si usted está usando su teléfono y quiere alzar la mano, por favor, pulse lo que es la estrella 9 y para desilenciar su micrófono sería la estrella 6. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Victor. Could I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Brownstone?
Here.
Councilmember Johnson?
Here.
Councilmember Nagangas?
Here.
Vice Mayor Penrose?
Here.
Mayor Ruddick? Here. We have a quorum.
All rise for Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, so the next item is to approve tonight's agenda. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda? Could I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second? I'll second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're moving on to proclamations and presentations. And it seems tonight we have a presentation by Mid-Coast Community Council, an update. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. So thanks for inviting me. I'm Ollendorf from the Mid-Coast Community Council. That's way up north in the unincorporated region of Half Moon Bay / San Mateo County. And I feel like I owe you guys an update on what's happening at our Cypress Point housing project. So on December 3rd, the people in the community received a flyer saying that construction is going to begin soon. So by the third week in December, construction on that housing project was underway. And as you drive by or look at it, you can see they're in full swing working on that housing project. Now, I wanted to bring a couple things to your attention regarding that, and a final statement about that also. Recently, they discovered asbestos on the site, so they had to do an asbestos abatement, and that's in the progress of being cleaned up right now. The second thing that was located on the site was a tank full of something, and the contents of the tank are being investigated to what they are and what its mitigation would look like in the future. So, with that, saying that, Cypress Point was exempt from CEQA. And I think probably there's a lesson to be taken in there somewhere. So that's all with Cypress Point. I'd also like to say that the Mid-Coast is grateful that the sewer force main project is underway, and that the ISMND, I had to read that, is up for approval on October 7th, on the 17th. Not October 17th, but this 17th. Also, one other thing I'd like to mention about up there in Montera is there's a Caltran bypass property that's pretty overgrown with trees. And we're working on getting fire mitigation and some fuel load reduction to improve the fire safety of that part of way in the back of Montera. Finally, I'd like to let you know what's happening at our next meeting. So at our next meeting, the sheriff and the Department of Emergency Management will be giving a talk to us about emergency evacuation plans. And what's also interesting about this is they're going to use the Ladris software. They use the Ladris software in the process of planning this. So I know people are very interested in Ladris software, and it will be an opportunity to learn what that is. And that's my update for today, and I'm willing to field any questions that are easy.
So I have one. So is it the meeting tomorrow night where they're going to be
Yes.
discussing the emergency management?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, great. Vice Mayor Penrose, will you be attending that meeting as our liaison?
I attend them all, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for reporting out. Is there anyone in the audience or on Zoom that would like to comment on this item, on the report from Midcoast Community Council? I don't see anyone in the room. Is there anyone online? No hands raised online. So I think we can say that this item is complete.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Okay. So mayor's announcements of community activities and community service. So I have a couple tonight. This Thursday on April 23rd at Half Moon Bay Library from 4 to 5:30, there will be a volunteer information session for folks who would like to be trained to do tutoring for adult literacy. And that's been an ongoing program for several years, pretty successful program, but they're looking for new volunteers. So that's 4 to 5:30 this Thursday at the Half Moon Bay Library. And my second item is just an announcement that the Half Moon Bay Wine and Jazz Festival is coming up on May 9th, Saturday, May 9th, from 12 to 5 p.m. on Main Street. And there will be food court and beer and cider garden. And general admission tickets are $68. You can find out more by going to HMBWineandJazzFest, all one word.com. And those are my report outs for tonight. And then the next item is report out from recent closed session meetings. And I believe we don't have anything to report out this evening.
That's correct, Madam Mayor. No reportable action this evening.
Thank you. All right, so the next item is commission and committee updates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I add a couple of events
Please do.
to shout out? This coming weekend is actually a very busy weekend. On Sunday, there are 3 events that I'm aware of. There's probably more. The largest of them would be Dream Machines at the Half Moon Bay Airport on Sunday, which is a great event. And just be aware it's going to bring some traffic, but it's also a fundraiser for our senior community and a really, really great event for the coast side. Concurrently, there's an event at Carter Park. It's Dia de los Niños, and it's, I think, the first time it's being held at this scale at Carter Park. We're really excited to see that happening. All Us is the sponsor of that, and that's a free community event, but there will be some food and other things as well. And we'd have to grab the times. I apologize. I'm just kind of picking these things out of my head, but yes, this is all on Sunday, and it's Coastside Wildflower Day. So there's a lot going on this weekend, this Sunday specifically. So weather looks good, and there'll be lots for our community to do and for our visitors to do as well. So
Thank you for those important additions.
yeah.
All right.
Okay, our community development director unfortunately was not able to come tonight, and so I'll provide the report out on the Planning Commission. There was a Planning Commission meeting last Tuesday night. There were 2 items on the agenda. The first was regarding a Verizon cell phone tower permit above the high school where the new water tanks have been built for CCWD. They had to go taller because the tanks are bigger. And the Planning Commission considered it. They conditionally approved the project with some additional requirements, including kind of and it's a really interesting presentation. And I'm also going to recommend that we actually have her come and do a presentation, a condensed version of this for the council. I think it was really interesting information that is very pertinent to the coast side and to the city as a whole, and I think it'd be valuable information to bring forward. So if you're okay with that, we'll look at a time that works to provide a condensed version of that at a council meeting.
Yeah, I suggested that she actually do that for
Okay,
council.
perfect.
Especially the issue with the trees and the crows. There's some predation going on of raptors by crows, apparently.
Yeah.
So I think that would be interesting to hear at council level and also for the public. And
Exactly. Okay, great. We will work on scheduling that probably sometime this summer. So the only other piece with Planning Commission is normally their next meeting would be next Tuesday night, the 28th. That meeting's been canceled because the projects that were slated for it will not be ready for it. And of course, we have a special meeting instead that night on 555 Kelly. So the next meeting won't be until May for the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Swooped in to distract at least one, so then it was 2 on 1 and 1 on 1, trying to help the other hawk. It was quite interesting. But the ranchers around here are noticing it, as are people in town. I mean, I had a dove nest up under a deck, and I thought it was really safe because it was so hidden I could barely figure out that it was there. But by golly, they got that too. So it's really something that needs to be addressed. I know it's not the city's responsibility, but the awareness should be, is very important. Thank you.
And apparently there may be instances of, trash or overflowing dumpsters that attract the crow population especially. And it is significant for Half Moon Bay because we are a major raptor overwintering area, usually from August through the month of May. And so anything that changes that dynamic is significant, especially when you have predatory birds who, plunder other birds' nests and reduce populations of other more beneficial populations of birds and things. So we'll learn more about that. But thank you, Nancy. Okay. So I guess we can move on to public forum.
Oh, item 7, city man. So I was giving the Planning Commission update.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah.
City manager updates to council.
Great.
Thank you.
And we did have one item listed on the agenda, the South Corridor study. We're actually going to punt that to a future meeting. There's some things happening with that, and we think it would be good to work that out before we bring that forward. But we do have Republic Services here who has some things they want to share. And we'll start with Matt Nichols from our Public Works Department, who will introduce this piece of it.
Good evening, council, members of the public. Can you hear me okay? Okay. I'm Matt Nichols. I am your senior management analyst for our Public Works Department. With me tonight is Sonia from Republic Services. Before I give it to you, do you want to make a couple announcements? Some more exciting dates that we have coming up. Sorry. This coming Wednesday, so tomorrow, the 22nd is Earth Day, and I was just speaking with Sea Hugger, and they're going to be hosting a beach cleanup at Poplar Beach from 1 to 3 tomorrow. So if you have time, stop by, say hi, pick up some garbage, and hopefully the weather's not like today. In addition to that, we will be having our biannual, so twice a year, Community Recycling Day this Saturday. That will be at Smith Field from 9 a.m. to 12. I know people love to get there before 9, but no matter how early you come, we won't let you drop off your stuff until 9. And then I will also be at Coastal Wildflower Day on Sunday, so come stop by the city's tent and say hello. Now let me introduce Sonia from Public Services.
Please excuse my voice.
Bring the mic down.
Is this better? Okay. Good evening, Honorable Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. For those who may not know me, my name is Sonia, and I'm with Republic Services, the city's solid waste and recycling provider. Tonight, I wanted to take a few moments to highlight how Republic Services has been supporting the city through community events over the past year, share a look ahead at upcoming opportunities, and briefly remind everyone of the role we play in keeping the city clean, compliant, and moving forward. At our core, Republic Services is here to serve the residents, the businesses, and institutions to the city every single day. This includes reliable trash, recycling, and organics collection, but it also extends beyond the curb. We see ourselves as a long-term community partner, not just a service provider. Over the past year, Republic Services has been proud to support and participate in a number of city and community events. These events allowed us to engage directly with residents, answer questions, provide education around proper sorting, recycling, and organics, and reinforce the city's sustainability goals. Some examples, so from last year, we sponsored the Pumpkin Way Off and the Pumpkin Festival by donating 14 roll-off boxes and 180 event boxes, where we connected with over 600 residents. We also sponsored Farm Day and donated $2,500 each to 4-H and Half Moon Bay's PFA. During the holiday season, we sponsored Night of Lights. We provided roll-off boxes and event boxes and participated in the parades. Our truck is very cute. We also participated in the Pride Parade last year, sponsored the recycling event last April, just as we will for this coming year, and partnered with city staff to add battery buckets to 2 locations, one at the City Hall and one at Ted Adcock Center here. Our presence at these events helps reinforce consistent messaging and gives residents a familiar point of contact when it comes to waste and recycling services. Direct community engagement helps reduce contamination, improve participation, and supports the city's broader environmental and compliance goals. When residents understand the why behind the program, it makes the entire system work better. This year in Q1, we passed out our newsletters to help further our education efforts for our residents, which included infographics on what goes into the trash, recycling, and organics, all 3 streams, and how to properly place carts in on the curbs, information about the battery buckets, and information about your bulky on-call, where each resident in Half Moon Bay gets 2 pickups a year. As we look ahead, there are several upcoming events. Speaking of events, we also have the Earth Day recycling event that Matt talked about this Saturday. We also have our compost giveaway, which will be from Friday to Sunday this weekend as well. A few other events that we'll be present at is the Senior Coastsiders Home Repair Day and Farms, Fish, and Flowers in collaboration with Coastside Chamber, which we're highly active in. We value our relationship with the city and appreciate the trust placed in us to serve the community every day. Thank you again for the time this evening and for the opportunity to share the updates. We look forward to continuing to work collaboratively with the city staff and community in the year ahead.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have questions from the Council for Republic Services or for Matt?
I have a comment.
Sure.
The compost was amazing. It wasn't last year's, but the year before, and it was really good, and my plants did really well, so I want to say thank you for that.
I appreciate
Last year's, I heard they had a little problem. I don't have to bring that up, but it was good stuff. And it was at Smithfield. Is it going to be at Smithfield again?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
And just as a reminder, it's all of our compost that we put in our trash that comes back to the city. So it's thank you for putting good trash in your compost.
Thank you. And thank you for your comment, Councilmember Johnson. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment on the presentation? Is there anyone online who would like to comment? Okay, I think we can move on. Thank you very much. Does the city manager have any additional reports?
No, that ends our reports tonight. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Okay. So I think we can move on now to public forum. I don't have any sheets. Okay. All right. I have two speakers in the room. The first speaker is Joaquin Jimenez, followed by Taylor Tong.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members, city staff, members of the public. My name is Joaquin Jimenez. Joaquin Murrieta in social media. I am running for San Mateo County Supervisor, District 3. 1 out of 6 residents of San Mateo County is in the SNAP program. 1 out of 6, that's a lot. The federal government is making cuts on this program. Part of my platform, one of the reasons I'm running is because of food security, food production, something that we can do here in our community to feed our community. Supporting our local farmers or local ranchers is very important for me. Working with our community to help new farmers and new ranchers to start a business is also important for us and for me. We are the largest farming community, in San Mateo County. In the Bay Area, if you look around, we are the largest. We have our open spaces. We have the land to farm, to produce the food that our residents need. And you can do your own research. You can do your fact check on what's going on in our county. You can see the work that the county is doing right now, the elected officials about the coast and food production. And there's no interest. You can do that. I've recently been receiving phone calls from the South Coast, pescadero farmers. They haven't seen elected officials in Pescadero for a while. One of them said to me, our county supervisor hasn't been here since 2024. That's not how we represent the community. A lot of promises have been made, and there's no follow-up. And I keep hearing that all across the county. And like I said, do your own research. You can call, South Coast and check in with the residents of the South Coast. But, food production and supporting our local farmers or local ranchers and new farmers and new ranchers is a must that we have to do. 1 out of 6 residents of San Mateo County is in that program. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Taylor Tong.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council, and City staff. My name is Taylor Tong, and I'm an intern at Pacific Coast Television. I'm here today to tell you that Pacific Coast Television is hosting Coastside Live, which is a community event designed to bring together local artists, performers, and community members for an evening of expression, connection, and creativity. Whether you're stepping up to the mic or simply soaking in the talent, this event aims to highlight the voices that make our coast side unique. It'll be broadcast live on Channel 27 or worldwide at pacificcoast.tv. And of course, it's free to attend. It's happening in this room next Thursday at 7 p.m., and we would love for you all to attend and support our local community together. Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor. Anyone online who would like to comment during public forum? You can raise your hand. No one? Okay. So we're moving on to the next item, which will be the consent calendar. I think I'll start by asking members of the public, is there anyone in the room or online who would like to address address items that are on the consent agenda? And I will read those items. They include item 9A, waive reading of ordinances and resolutions. Item 9B, approve minutes of April 7th, 2026 special meeting. Item 9C, approve minutes of April 7th, 2026 regular meeting. Item 9D, accept the warrants for the month of March 2026. 9E, final acceptance of the fiscal year 2025-26 pavement management project, CIB project number 1038. Item 9F, receipt of letters of support and legislative position letter. And those are all the items. So if you'd like to, you can come to the podium and comment on any of those items. And online, if you'd like to comment, you can raise your hand. I'm seeing no one in the room. Do we have anyone online? Okay. Are there any items that council members would like to pull for further discussion? No, then I would ask for a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda.
I move that we approve of the consent calendar items that Mayor Ruddick has just listed.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're moving on to ordinances and public hearings. The first item is item 10A, resolution assessing the levy for the Half Moon Bay Hotel Business Improvement District for fiscal year 2026-27, and this is a public hearing. We'll start with a presentation from staff.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, members of the public, Irma Acosta, City Manager's Office. I am here this evening to follow up on council's prior actions related to the Half Moon Bay Hotel Business Improvement District. At the April 7th meeting, council reviewed and approved the Half Moon Bay Hotel Business Improvement District annual report that was prepared by the Chamber of Commerce, which serves as a managing agency for the district. At that same meeting, council adopted a resolution of intention to continue to levy the assessment for fiscal year 2026-27, as well as setting tonight's meeting as the required public hearing. And that step is required under California Streets and Highways Code, which requires a public hearing each year before continuing the BID assessments. And just a little reminder for context, the BID is funded through a small assessment on hotel stays, and that rate is set at $2 per room per night. And there are no proposed changes to that rate or to the district this year. Those funds go directly towards marketing and promotion efforts that support tourism and bring visitors to Half Moon Bay. And as we've discussed in prior meetings, those overnight stays are significant and they're important for our local economy because they help fund some city services. So tonight's public hearing is the final procedural step in the annual process. At this time, the council will open the public hearing, receive and consider any oral or written protest and submit it in accordance with state law, and then close the public hearing. And then if there are no majority protests, consider the adoption of the resolution to continue to levy the assessment for fiscal year 2026-27. So with that, I will invite Mayor Ruddick to open the public hearing and take any public comment.
Thank you for a nice presentation, Irma.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll just start. Are there any clarifying questions from council members? Okay. Then I will open the public hearing. At this time, I don't have any speaker slips, but if there's anybody in the audience who would like to address this item, you can come to the podium, or you can raise your hand online if you're participating by Zoom. No speaker slips here, no raised hands? Okay. Well, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the council for any additional comment. We have no protest to consider, so we could entertain a motion and a second on this item.
I move that we adopt a resolution assessing the levy. Oops, lost it here. Assessing, it's not.
You want to read this?
Okay, sorry. Move that we adopt a resolution assessing the levy for the Half Moon Bay Hotel Business Improvement District for fiscal year 2026 through 27.
Second.
I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Councilmember Brownstone?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Nagengast?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Penrose?
Yes.
Mayor Ruddick?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. On to item 10B, introduction of an ordinance repealing Municipal Code Chapter 6.04, residential rental registration, and Chapter 6.06, residential rent stabilization, and amending Section 6.02.020, definitions to remove terms relating to residential rental registration and stabilization programs. Will staff report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Denise Bazzano, Interim City Attorney. This evening, I'll be presenting this item. So before you this evening is an ordinance to repeal the Municipal Code Chapter 6.04, which is the city's residential rental registration, and Chapter 6.06, which is residential rent stabilization. And we have also included in the ordinance amendments to Section 6.02.020, which are definitions. So just a basic timeline for you and the public. The council provided direction on November 7th, 2023 to create programs that provide tenant protections, and included in that program was ordinance number 2024-02, which established the residential rental registry program, which was adopted on February 6, 2024. A few months later, the council adopted ordinance number 2024-04, which established the residential rent stabilization program, and that ordinance was adopted on May 7, 2024. Since then, the council has received two updates in 2025, and then a few updates earlier this year, one on January 20th, one on February 17th, and then it was brought back again on March 17th, 2026. At the March 17th meeting, the council discussed both ordinances and the programs that they establish, and ultimately a majority of the council gave direction for staff to bring back an ordinance to repeal the residential rental registry and residential rent stabilization ordinances. So the proposed ordinance before you tonight is very simple. It repeals Chapter 6.04 in their entirety and 6.06 in their entirety. And it makes amendments to Section 6.02.020, the definitions, to remove those specific terms that relate to Chapters 6.04 and 6.06, so that we don't have definitions kept in the chapter that don't apply to any of the provisions. The ordinance also makes other findings relating to CEQA, specifies that the ordinance becomes effective 30 days after, and has other provisions about publication and effective date. The recommendation this evening is to, by motion, introduce by title and waive further reading of the ordinance before you, repealing Chapter 6.04 and Chapter 6.06 and amending Section 6.02.020 to remove those terms relating to those residential rental registration and rent stabilization programs. So with that, I'm available for questions. It was a very brief presentation, but the ordinance is very minor and succinct, so it's not a lot to present about.
Thank you for a succinct presentation. Succinct yet thorough.
Yes.
Are there any council members who would like to ask questions of the city attorney or to comment? Do we have any speakers in the room or online who would like to comment on this item? Okay. So at this time, if no one has any additional comments, yes. No.
Yes, I'm saddened by tonight's action. It seems inevitable since the new council members have joined us. I'm sad that either council members here do not understand, despite being told over and over again how difficult things are for many people in our city, and that they're willing to let go of the only protections that really mean anything to that community. It's a sad, sad day for me and for others and for many people in the community.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Now's the time to make a motion and a second on this item.
I'll make the motion. Do I have to read the exact title in front of me?
Yes, because it is an introduction, that the full title needs to be read.
I don't have the full title in front of me.
It's up on the, can you see the slide? No.
Is it, so essentially it's the recommendation on the agenda report.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I thought it was.
That's the title of the ordinance.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, introduced by title and waive further reading of an ordinance repealing City of Half Moon Bay Municipal Code Chapter 6.04 Residential Rental Registration and Chapter 6.06 Residential Rent Stabilization and amending Section 6.02.020, which is definitions, to remove terms relating to residential rental registration and stabilization programs.
I will second that motion. Could I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Brownstone?
No.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Nagengast?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Penrose?
No.
Mayor Reddick?
Yes.
Motion carries.
We're moving on to the next item, which is item 11A, consideration of tenant support, including rental assistance, inspection programs, and legal service partnerships.
Hello again, Madam Mayor, council members, members of the community. Irma Acosta, City Manager's Office.
Excuse me, Irma, could you just get a little louder on the mic? Thank
Is this
you.
better?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. That's really hard for me. Tonight, I will be walking you through potential tenant support strategies, including rental assistance, rental inspection programs, and legal service partnerships. What I'm hoping to do tonight is not just present those options, but also provide some context around how these programs function in place, what they're intended to solve, and what implementation could realistically look like in Half Moon Bay. So tonight's item is for discussion and direction from council. Specifically, staff is seeking guidance on whether to continue exploring 3 strategies: an emergency rental assistance program, a rental inspection program, and a potential partnership, bless you, with Community Legal Services in East Palo Alto, or CLESPA. Each of these approaches addresses tenant support from different angles, so financial, physical housing conditions, and legal protections. And they can work independently or in a combination depending on council's priorities and direction. I don't want to be redundant, but just for context, the city adopted the rent stabilization and rent registry programs back in the summer of 2024. And over that time, staff focused on implementation, outreach, and compliance support. And we provided several updates to council through 2025 and early 2026. And throughout those discussions, broader policy questions began to emerge, particularly around the long-term sustainability, the administrative complexity, and the overall effectiveness of the programs. And ultimately, at the March 17 meeting, council expressed interest in eliminating both programs and shift towards a more service-based approach that directly supports tenants. So tonight's meeting is really that pivot point from regulatory programs to a more targeted support strategies. The first option is an emergency rental assistance program. At a high level, these programs are designed to help households that are experiencing temporary financial hardships. So things like a medical emergency, a job loss, or an unexpected expense, by providing short-term financial assistance to help them stay housed. Half Moon Bay actually implemented a version of this in 2020, where the city allocated funding from the Affordable Housing Fund and partnered with local nonprofit organizations like Coastside Hope and St. Vincent de Paul. And those organizations handled the eligibility, the distribution of funds, and the reporting, which allowed the city to support Half Moon Bay residents without the need to build a new administrative structure or program. Throughout the program, St. Vincent de Paul served approximately 47 households, and Coastside Hope served around 76 households, demonstrating both the demand and the ability for these local organizations to administer those resources within the community. So building on that, the city could consider partnering again with local nonprofit organizations such as Coastside Hope, which actually already operates a rental assistance program and has an established presence on the coast side. So we can really leverage on that existing provider. Like this can help really streamline the implementation process and make sure that the program is accessible to residents who are probably already going there to receive or seek out other services that are offered there. In terms of how it works in practice, a typical program like this can provide anywhere from like $1,000 to $4,000, depending on the need, and it's usually limited to a one-time or limited assistance, and it can be up to the city and the local nonprofit organization on whether these funds can be used for other than just rent, so such as utilities or security deposits in cases of relocation. A key point with this option is that these programs are not designed to be ongoing subsidies. They're really meant to stabilize someone that is experimenting in a moment of crisis. And because of that, demand is often very high. And this is something that we've heard from local nonprofit organizations that have similar programs. As well as peer cities. So the staff met with the city of San Mateo, who actually operates a similar program. They actually partner with Samaritan House, and they've shared that the demand for the need has exceeded their initial projections. So it's definitely something to consider if the city wishes to continue to explore this option. And then another thing to consider is that rental assistance tends to be more effective when it's paired, with support services such as legal resources, because it helps address not just the immediate crisis, but also the underlying issue or risk for displacement. The second option is a rental inspection program, which focuses more on housing conditions and habitability. The goal of these programs is to make sure that rental units meet basic health and safety standards. So things like functioning plumbing, electrical systems, heating, fire alarms, carbon monoxide alarms, and overall the structural integrity of rental units. There are different ways that cities approach these programs. A traditional model involves proactive inspections of all rental units on a regular cycle. And while this is a more comprehensive approach, it is the more resource intensive and typically requires a dedicated staff or team to be able to conduct these inspections. A hybrid model is often a little bit more feasible for smaller jurisdictions like Half Moon Bay. In this approach, property owners self-certify that their units meet basic standards, and then the city conducts periodic, random, or compliant-based inspections to verify that compliance. And then the last one, so in conversations with our community development department, which is typically where these programs tend to be housed out of, we were kind of discussing the idea of an incentive-based model where property owners, and it's more of a flexible approach, so participation would be voluntary, meaning property owners can choose to opt into the program rather than being required to participate. And in exchange, the city could offer some sort of recognition or certification, such as being listed as complying or certified rental property, which can be beneficial from a marketing and credibility standpoint. So a landlord can be more attractive to prospective tenants if the property is known to meet basic health and safety standards. So this option, the rental inspection programs, are less about direct financial support, but more about ensuring the safety and quality of the rental housing stock in Half Moon Bay. There are several important considerations for inspection programs, and the first is staffing capacity. So again, after speaking with our community development department, we were kind of discussing and agreed that the city doesn't really have the current resources to implement a fully proactive inspection program. So this would likely require contracting with a third-party provider, such as Four Leaf, which is who we've worked with in the past, to conduct these inspections, or even hire a staff that is dedicated to just these inspections. There are also logistical challenges such as coordinating access to units, ensuring compliance, and managing enforcement actions if violations are identified. And one of the more nuanced concerns is the potential for unintended consequences. So for example, if significant issues are identified and a tenant may need to relocate either temporarily or permanently. So while the intent is to improve housing conditions, it's important to think through how those outcomes are managed in order to prevent displacement. And the third and last option is expanding legal services through a partnership with CLESPA. This approach is a bit different in that it focuses on providing tenants with direct access to legal support. So CLESPA is actually already working with Coastside Hope and has established a monthly legal clinic on the coast side. So through this model, tenants can receive assistance with understanding the rights, reviewing lease agreements, and also navigating eviction-related situations. And what's notable here is that from meeting with these organizations, they have shared that demand is already very strong for these services, and they've actually shared that every appointment that they've offered during these monthly clinics has been filled up. So the need is there. And in some cases, there have already been legal intervention that has prevented evictions. And from an implementation standpoint, this is also the more straightforward option because it builds on an existing partnership and infrastructure. So again, Coastside Hope and CLESPA are already working together, and they already have a program set in place. The estimated cost for this partnership would be approximately $40,000 annually, which would continue to support those monthly legal clinics, create more of an opportunity for outreach and education through CLESPA and their workshops, and also possibly expand the services that are being offered by CLESPA at Coastside Hope. So just when looking at all of these together, each one serves a different purpose. So rental assistance provides immediate short-term relief during a financial crisis, but it requires ongoing funding, and it doesn't necessarily address the issues on its own. Inspection programs focus on improving housing conditions, but they are more complex to implement and require significant resources from the city. And then lastly, legal services, on the other hand, provide targeted support and can be particularly effective in preventing displacement, often at a lower cost and fewer administrative demands from the city. So the decision here isn't necessarily about choosing one or the other, or if any. It's really about identifying council's direction and priorities. So at this point, staff is seeking direction from council on which of these strategies, if any, you would like us to explore further. And that includes identifying priorities, level of interest, and any other considerations that you'd like us to incorporate. And then additionally, specifically, staff is seeking direction, whether we should continue, move forward, with the partnership with CLESPA. And then based on council's direction, staff would return at a future meeting with the more detailed program design, cost estimates, and potential funding options for council's consideration. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions or provide more details on any of the options that were presented.
Thank you, Irma.
Thank you.
Council member, questions for Irma? Or comments at this point before I take public? Sure.
Irma, in 2020, the $200,000 that we had for emergency rental assistance, was that in reaction to COVID?
I think we were already working on a model like this, and it was accelerated by COVID, for sure.
So how do we get to that amount back then? Was that for 1 year or a couple of years? What was the thinking?
I mean, it was intended to be for 1 year. It actually went beyond that initial year, but that was basically we gave $100,000 each to two different service providers at the time, and I think it was just kind of an initial investment to help support households, and we evaluated over time to see if we needed to replenish it, and it kind of carried us through the initial stages of the pandemic.
Right. And our current housing fund has around 1.3 or 1.4 million?
I verified with our finance director, and there's actually 2.1 million unallocated funds.
How much?
2.1 million.
2.1 million in the housing.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Are any of those earmarked for anything? Do we know?
It sounds like those are the unallocated funds. Ken's confirming, and
Okay.
Ken's good with the numbers, so.
So direction tonight might have you look at what amount might be workable, talking with the service providers that would be helpful. What do you think? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great. Good. Councilmember Nagengast?
Thank you. The rental assistance, that's just strictly the rent, right? Let's say utilities sometimes gets commingled with rental, but utilities are actually treated separately. Yes, no?
I think it's up to the organization's discretion. Like when I met with staff from the city of San Mateo, so their program actually allows those funds to be able to be used for either utilities or relocation, like in terms of like security deposits. But we can definitely have different requirements for those funds.
So that could be something we can determine how to spend those monies, whether we want to include it separately, because we'll set that up if we decide to move forward.
Yeah, so I would come back at a future meeting with a more detailed program design, and we can outline some of those requirements in terms of how the funds are being used.
Okay. And then the other thing, you mentioned San Mateo as a peer. What do you mean by peer? Because when I hear peer, because there are 100-something thousand populations, so I look at them a little differently, but maybe is it a peer because they offer the same
I just
programs?
meant peer because they're also a city, and they have a similar program. So when I was doing my research around what other cities are doing,
that makes sense.
And I've met some of their staff in housing manager meetings, so it was, that's why.
Okay, I was trying to.
I know our demographics are very different, but it was
they
helpful.
have these programs in place, I think, is what, okay. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else at this time? Okay, well, I'll take a public comment. The first speaker I have here is Judy Taylor.
Good evening. I'm going to speak here tonight about process.
Judy, can you move the mic up?
Sorry, could you move the mic a little closer?
You really need to speak right into it.
Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay. Several years ago, Rich Gordon submitted an urgency ordinance at the county giving us design review, floor area ratios, and a bunch of things that we hadn't seen before. Urgency ordinances, they get presented, adopted 45 days later, then you got 2 years to go through the process to get it cleaned up. 45 days after that, there was standing room only in the vestibule of the Board of Supervisors chambers. There were so many people upset about what they were seeing and the impact it was going to have on them, that they were just up in arms. So Rich put together a task force. 6 of the folks that wanted to see more design review stuff, and 6 folks like me, designers, architects, contractors. And we met off the record for close to 2 years, twice a month, 2 hours, Rich and a staff person. And we drilled deep into the issues. And before that time, we were getting a lot of 2-story boxes, just 2 stories all the way around, big boxes. And the folks that wanted more design review said, we want to see articulation on all 4 sides on the upper floors. Warren Donald, some of you will remember, said that's going to cost me more money to build. Why is that going to cost you more money? It's less square footage. He says, well, when I can put the upper walls on the bottom walls, my engineering's done. When I move a wall in, I have to engineer to support that weight. That costs me more money. Oh, the result was, first meeting on, Rich said, I do not expect consensus. Throughout the 2 years, I do not expect consensus. By the time we got to the end, 12 of us, 201. In a perfect world, I would like something different, but I can live with this. Those days were ugly. I helped people build houses in those days, and a lot of people got upset about it. And I was in a meeting for not a sanitary district, and the person in front of me said, whoever's doing this should be shot. And people kind of tittered and laughed. And me being me, I said, I'm sitting right here behind you. And she turned around, you should be shot. The tittering and the clapping elevated. It took the guy running the meeting far too long to gavel the meeting down. I'm telling you, those days were ugly, but we got people that cared about this community, that were smart, into a room, and we drilled deep on this stuff. We got into what it means when you have to step a house down a hill, whether floor area should be different on non-conforming lots, smaller lots. And at the end, we all could live with it. And those rules are, for the most part, they're getting tweaked today, but they have held for more 30 years. So what I'm asking you, this is complex. Please put smart coastsiders in the room to deal with this from a coastsider's perspective. Property owners want stable tenancy. Tenants want stable housing. We are not enemies. Put the people together who know the logistics of these issues. Let them get really deep into it, spend a lot of time on it, and then come back to you with something that you can say yea or nay to. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Nancy Fontana.
Hi, thank you this evening. I have been trying to get myself up to date on a lot of things, like I went to the Measure D.
Nancy, can you speak right into the microphone, please?
Okay. I went to the Measure D. I went to the Measure D informational session, and have gone to other things, priority setting and the comment periods. I went to the one held for the Spanish people because I wanted to hear as much as I could from their perspective. I thought that was important. And I recently watched the Zoom meeting on the housing. That was last week, I think. And one of the things that Derek Braun, who was the presenter on that, I understood all of the stuff he was talking about, but he made a point which is really important. And one was that you should not do anything that's so strict that it discourages. And I think that applies in many situations for the city and when you're making decisions. I'm kind of weaving around between the last item because it has, but I think that's one of the reasons there was so much outcry against that particular bit of legislation. You do have the Tenant Protections Code still there. That wasn't part of what is being repealed. I understand the disappointment. I think there was very good intentions, but I haven't seen a lot of creativity. I was very relieved when Irma actually said the word incentivization. There's something to be said to draw people in, to make it, I don't mean worth it, but we had a little property in Idaho, and Idaho is a very conservative state. And this is probably, 30 years ago. Had old house. We bought it for the land. It was old house. We thought we were going to move there. But anyhow, that's the whole different story. But he was very poor. He qualified through the state of Idaho. We were contacted if we didn't, and our rent was low because we weren't living there and we didn't want it to be hard for him to maybe go do a little something if something needed to be done. We were contacted by the state. They had a program where if we agreed we wouldn't increase the rent for, and I can't remember if it was 2 years or 5 years, that the state would come in and make improvements. And that would benefit us because it would improve the property, but also it would make it more comfortable for the tenant. It replaced a couple of windows. They replaced some siding, added insulation, did things because it was made his life more comfortable. There's so much that could be done, and I think at the state level, this legislation is I think a lot of it is backfiring, and that's why there's and a lot of it's not. People want it changed. And anyhow.
Thank you,
I
Nancy.
think you're on the right track right now. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no more, I have one more speaker slip. It's Rocio Avila Garcia. Will you like translation services? Victor will come up.
So Rocio is going to provide her comment, and then I'll provide you with the side translation afterwards.
Hola, buenas noches, miembros del concilio. Y las personas presentes, mi nombre es Rocío Ávila. Me dirijo ante ustedes para expresar mi apoyo al programa de asistencia financiera a la comunidad y la ayuda legal. Este tipo de iniciativas son fundamentales para garantizar que todos los residentes, especialmente los más vulnerables, tengan acceso a los recursos y la protección que necesitan. A nivel estatal, miles de familias se enfrentan desalojos cada año y la gran mayoría de los inquilinos no cuentan con la representación legal, mientras que muchos propietarios sí las tienen. En nuestra comunidad existen muchos casos de los que muchos de ustedes no se imaginan o alcanzan a percibir. Situaciones como desalojos injustificados, dificultades económicas y la falta de acceso a asesoría legal. Esto afecta a numerosas familias que en muchos casos no saben a dónde acudir ni cómo defender sus derechos. Es precisamente la población más vulnerable en la que enfrenta mayores barreras. No podemos permitir que queden desamparados ni sin protección frente a situaciones que amenazan su estabilidad, su vivienda y su bienestar. El acceso a asistencia financiera y apoyo legal no es un lujo, es una necesidad básica para asegurar justicia y equidad en nuestra comunidad. Les pido que continúen fortaleciendo y apoyando estos programas, ampliando su alcance y asegurando que la información llegue a los quien más lo necesitan. Muchas gracias.
Good evening, members of the council and everybody present here. My name is Rocio Avila. I'm talking to you so that I can express my support to the rental assistance program here in the community with all of the legal help that comes with it. These types of initiatives are fundamental in order to guarantee that all of the residents, especially the most vulnerable, have access to resources and protections that they need. At a state level, thousands of families are always looking at evictions each year, and the vast majority of the renters can't count on legal representation, while many of the property owners do have legal representation. In our community, there exists even more cases than you can even imagine or even begin to perceive. Situations like evictions, unjustified evictions, economical difficulties, and lack of access for legal counsel. These affect numerous families that in many cases don't even know where to go or how to defend their rights. So it's precisely this population that's the most vulnerable that has to jump over these hurdles. So we can't allow or permit that we remain this way without any protections in different situations that threaten the stabilization, the living conditions, and their well-being. The access to rental assistance and legal support isn't a luxury. It's a necessity, a basic one, so that we can assure that there's justice and equity in our community. So I'm asking you to continue fortifying and supporting these programs, and maybe even doing more within your scope, and making sure that all of the information is well received for those who need it. Thank you very much for your attention, and your commitment to our community.
Gracias, Rocio. I have no more speaker slips here. Is there anyone online who would like to? Okay, great.
Go ahead, Cindy.
Yes, hello? Thank
We can hear you.
Good evening, everyone. I would just like to echo the previous speaker and encourage the council to support and potentially expand existing rental assistance programs and legal support services. I've heard over the past couple of years the staff present multiple times how these programs have so much demand, more demand than can be met. So if there's a way that we can help provide additional funding, additional educational outreach to landlords and tenants, and connect people to these services, it seems that that would be a win-win for everyone. So I would just really encourage that we continue down that path instead of spinning up new programs that ultimately could detract from helping our community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cindy. The next speaker is Evelyn D'Souza. Oh, okay, sorry about that. I see no other hands raised. Okay, so we can bring it back to council for discussion. Who would like to start?
I guess I'll start the ball. And do you want to just go through each one of us just go to three things?
Yeah, I think that's an organized way to do it.
Okay.
Start with the rental assistance and move through.
Right. So rental assistance, I support that. What that number should be, I think that's something you should look at. Staff could bring back to us. Our peer city is a much larger budget probably, and that's why they're going to use larger numbers, as far as, but the idea to use it, I did talk to Judith a little bit at Coastside Hope, and that is something they could use more funds. I'll make it clear, I think it was San Mateo might have used Half Moon Bay as an example that we provide $50,000 that is for rental assistance to Coastside Hope. It's not that whole amount that's used for rental assistance at Coastside Hope. It is a smaller number. I don't think we've designated an exact number. So that's something we could do if we wanted a number to be dedicated specifically for that if we wanted to, or not. I'm just thinking, however it comes back to us. But I just say I saw that number being used as if we're already doing 50,000 dedicated specifically, and that's not true. San Mateo was using it as an example.
Yeah, I've seen that in the past, that they cite that the city of Half Moon Bay provides $50,000 of rental assistance, and that's what they're citing is our CSFA contribution,
I think so, yeah.
which is for a variety of items, and they've used it a little bit towards rental assistance, but they've been really wary of doing that because it's supposed to be a broader use of funds.
Right. So that could be something we, as a council, could identify a designated amount if we want to, or we could leave it still up to Coastside Hope or whoever. Because I'm thinking I would keep it with Coastside Hope. I know we've talked about, who's the one that does it on over the hill that San Mateo uses?
Samaritan House.
Right, but I would rather use it with our own.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
On this side, all right. The other rental inspection, I like to volunteer as much as we can. I do not want to burden staff. Today, though, if we have a complaint, don't we go out? So we're currently doing that now when there is a complaint. So complaint-driven still would be our practice. But I think if we could maybe incentive-based some type of volunteer to get some pride of ownership, I think that would be to me, be preferable before we require mandatory to allow inspections. It's just, I'm uncomfortable just running in unless you're required to by law or you have to do something.
Yeah.
So I think we would get more participation if people would volunteer on their own and want to be part of the program. But that's how I would approach this. I wouldn't want to have it mandatory right away. And then, in fact, I make the point that since we go out on complaints now as a practice, as we would any health and safety, we absolutely would go out and inspect. And legal support, too, is important. You know, what that, again, I think there's a number in there, even though we say we could use housing funds, that's still city funds. So I want to be, I just don't want to, you know, start unlimited number. I don't know what, you know, I see 40,000 as is that a target number or something that's realistic based on conversations you've had?
Yeah, so based on conversations that I've had with CLESPA and COSID Hope, that's the figure that they gave me that would continue to cover those services.
So they collaborate together? Is that how that works? And Hope, they're the lead on this and they refer it to the
Yeah, so COSID Hope pays for these services, and CLESPA, again, has monthly meetings every, I think it's second Thursday of the month. So they actually come to COSID Hope and host those clinics.
Interesting.
And then they provide that legal advice and help with like know your rights. They have workshops, and then they also help with eviction-related situations. So that figure would kind of help cover those services and also expand either those services that are being offered, whether it's more outreach workshops. It could create more appointments that are available to Half Moon Bay residents. But again, that'll be something that we would have to discuss with these organizations.
Right. So would the money go to COSID Hope then?
Yes.
So that we would designate whatever that amount is.
So it would be the 40,000.
Right.
Yeah.
Or whatever the number is.
I mean, if you want to give them more. Yeah.
But we would specifically designate it for that.
So the city would allocate this money to COSID Hope, and then COSID Hope would pay CLESPA.
Right, but we would make sure it went to it was for the legal services.
Yeah, that
because right now we just provide a lump sum to
for
COSID Hope.
CSFA, yeah, that covers other safety net
Right.
services, but this 40,000 would be specific for legal support services.
And Councilmember Nagin, yes, we could specify in some sort of agreement with COSID Hope that those funds are to be used for legal services.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and then get a copy of the agreement that COSID Hope enters into with CLESPA, so that we have an idea, yeah.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to go next? Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I think the idea of a voluntary inspection is absurd. The problems come with the landlords who aren't doing the right thing. They're not going to volunteer to be inspected. So having voluntary inspections is only going to help those landlords that are good landlords. It's not an incentive to somebody who's out to make money off of the poor to volunteer to be inspected. That makes no sense at all to me. I like the idea of a partnership with Community Legal Services in East Palo Alto. I think that makes a lot of sense. I know that with emergency rental assistance, the demand has been huge and much greater than the supply. So I would like to know more about what that demand is. I certainly would not like to be stopping at something like $40,000 a year when that's not adequate. Those are my thoughts right now.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Johnson.
I think Coastside Hope, I like how they're working here on the coast, and I think it's the program's working. I think we keep it in-house. I like that idea. I would definitely like to see 40,000 or more if we can for legal and any kind of ways that we can figure out what the consensus is that's needed and fine-tune it. I did like the volunteer program, but I do hear the concerns, which I didn't think about. But if we could have some kind of code enforcement on that action, if there's any way that if there is a complaint, we could use our in-house code enforcement. Legal services, I'm definitely in for the collaboration with CLESPA and Coastside Hope. I think that was a great idea. And then I definitely would like to see that we utilize our new person that we have for Facebook and Instagram and all that for getting the message out in all languages needed, and utilize our web page that we have, and utilize in City Hall where it's right in the windows. If you need help, this is what we have in all languages, and the services that we're trying to do, and to know your rights. And if we need to actually have more workshops, because I'm hearing that they're pretty packed, maybe try to incentivize in our own way if we could, if we have staff or somebody, or we can hire somebody to actually do that, so that if it is overwhelmed, that we can actually get more workshops in there and more involved, so that we can have brochures and things like that. Whatever it takes to get the word out that we're here to help and try to do the best that we can. But I also need to know more details of what it is that we need. You know, it's for the rent, it's for utilities, it's whatever it is, so we can come up with a very detailed, structured plan.
Councilmember Brownstone?
Yeah, I don't, in terms of the inspection program, I feel like the city, already does follow up, right? You mentioned. And so if a tenant has an issue, whether they go through one of the local advocacy groups or not, we follow up on that. So I need to know more. I just haven't heard enough to say that we need that, actually, because I think we already take care of that, unless I hear more information that we're not meeting that situation in a way that's effective. I'd say we not go that direction at this point. Regarding rental assistance, I have a lot of, I've spent some time with Coastside Hope and really looked at their operation, and I think they're very effective. I think they're very trustworthy. And as Councilmember Johnson said, it's not just rent, right? It's utilities, other things that we're looking at. So I also had no idea that we had twice as much money in our housing fund than I thought, because I just keep hearing 1 point something. So 2.1 was a delight to hear. We don't always have those moments where, wow, we have twice as much. So I really trust Coastside Hope. I'd like to give them $100,000, and I trust that if they feel that's too much for 1 year, and they say, no, actually that'll last 2 years, depending on the demand, I trust that they'll make very effective use, and we can afford it, which is great. In terms of the legal services, I think CLESPA does a terrific job. And it seems like right now staff is saying 40,000 would cover the existing amount of issues that have come up. And then we can always, they'll now be a recipient, so they'll come and give us progress reports and say what they're doing with them. And then we can make determinations incrementally if needed. So, I would like to see that. And I think, hearing what Rocio Villa Garcia had, a lot of folks don't have the resources, to bring legal cases. And just one quick comment to make. Sometimes in our conversations or the hearings that we have, to some, I've heard comments that it seemed that we were only focusing on the rent struggles of farm workers. But my comment is, I hear from seniors, they're not farm workers necessarily, who they're on fixed income. Their total income is Social Security. And seniors, I keep reading articles that seniors are the largest growing group of homeless folks. So I did want to just, correct the impression that, we only are focusing on one community, but we're also focusing a lot on seniors. And I sat around looking at the folks coming into the Coastside Hope Pantry, and it was quite a mix. And but maybe you don't always hear from everybody, because it can feel very embarrassing to come in front of council and say, hey, I just can't afford to live. So I just wanted to make that comment that, it's not just farm workers, and so that's my opinion.
You might be getting coders needing help. Coders, laid off coders, terminated coders because of AI. Right. Sure.
Yeah, I'd like to ask, how many tenants who are living in the deplorable conditions that we've heard exist here in our city have come to the city to complain and ask for an inspection?
There's been a few, and that's what we've referenced.
A few. How many is that? 2?
I'm aware of 2
12?
major issues
Okay,
that we've
so
inspected
2.
over the last couple of years.
Yeah. So when you say that we already have a program, the program is not designed to help the folks that are afraid to come and speak. It's not a good inspection program if it's not taking care of those of the most vulnerable who are afraid to speak up.
That could be a good point. I appreciate what you're saying.
Thank you.
But through the mayor, real quick, but we are inspecting, we do have a complaint, right? And that's how we operate today, right? And do we know how many properties are deplorable that aren't being inspected?
No, and the 2 that I'm aware of, those are the ones that rose to such deplorable conditions that we had to take a lot of action. There may have been more complaints that have been followed up by code enforcement, and we can get that information as part of a follow-up to this. But I do think, to the Vice Mayor's point, this isn't a big thing we're dealing with, and so that's, I think, kind of the question that's being asked. Is it that there's not as many deplorable conditions as we think, or are people afraid to come forward, somewhere in between? So I think one of the recommendations I'm going to make, and obviously we need to hear from the mayor, is that on this inspection issue, I think there's probably more work we can do, and I think, to Judy Taylor's comments, this is probably an area where we do need to sit down with landlords and tenants and do some focus groups and do some more exploration to figure out how big is the issue and how do we address this, and what is the issue we're trying to address. Is it subletting? Is it deplorable conditions? Is it something else? So I don't want to steal your thunder, Madam Mayor, but as I'm listening, I'm thinking this is an issue that we probably need to spend more time on, gathering more information, having some focus groups, hearing from renters and from landlords, and having some of those deeper discussions to figure out the issues and how we best address them.
Okay, so let me counter that. So as far as home inspection, I'm not ready to increase our level of activity in this area right now. We do have compliance inspections what you can do if you're I think education will go a long way in terms of helping address, those issues. Our attention. And as for the amount for rental assistance, I hear you, say $100,000. I'm open to considering, any amount where Coastside Hope feels, it would be helpful. So I want to dig down more on that. Money for education. And I want this to be as an add-on to the CFA grant program, because as we know, the issue for people isn't just picture of what people are dealing with. So what I heard was it looks like everybody so far is on board with rental assistance, legal services. Some have kind of nibbled around the edges of the home inspection.
Lovely idea, and I think if all you're worried about is a broken refrigerator, and you learn Thank you.
Well, I see education as supplemental. When you're talking about like legal services with problems, so I'm not saying rely on it. I'm saying there's a place for that in conjunction with these other services.
I'm all for education. It has nothing to do with the problem, though. It doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't help the people that are living in substandard conditions that are very vulnerable. They need help with inspections, not waiting for them to speak up and have the city go and look at the broken refrigerator. That's not the issue. Never has been the issue. So we're talking about some minority of people who really could use a little bit of education, not the majority of people that are suffering.
Well, I'm not saying that people are not suffering. I'm saying there are multiple things we can do, multiple pathways to help people, and I'm going to rely on the expertise of the service providers to help us figure out that piece. But I think more education is always helpful. How can you protect yourself? How can you empower yourself to help make change? So,
I think Robert's got a comment.
Councilmember Brownstone.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you're dealing with substandard conditions, the situation that we want to avoid is that if you complain, you're considered some sort of whistleblower, and then there's retaliation, right, for that. Mm-hmm. I think the more we get legal services involved, where much less chance of retaliation when there's legal services involved, and if that is linked to communication, hey, if these are the issues, we now have the protection. When I say communication, that is a form of education, but then word of mouth starts getting around. Oh, wow, these folks, they'll back you up. You can come forward. And if you want to do it, you mentioned like anonymously, legal services will do it on your behalf. And they'll contact the city and say, we need to do an inspection here, okay? And keep, and then they will track whether there's any retaliation. So I think it's really how, the context that we put this in and how we, talk about it.
I'm open to being educated myself by the people who do this work and understand it. So,
because we know, there were shocking conditions going on. During the time of the shootings, there were shocking substandard conditions. What I will say is a fact, many people knew about those conditions. That is a fact. Real concerns. So I'm just saying that is an unfortunate reality that exists out there. So, it could be pretty terrible, and everybody was pretty shocked. But what was also as shocking to me later on was, we did know about this, but we were afraid if we raised a stink,
think about those excuses tonight. Anyway, do you feel like you have adequate direction here? Excuse me, Councilmember Johnson?
I'd like to add educating landlords on the requirements of the fridge working, fire alarms requirement, hot waters, clean water, carbon monoxide, heating systems that work functioning, filters that need to be changed, as we all do, things that, sometimes renters don't always do that, but they don't educate their people that, this has to be done, or they have to go in and do it themselves. So the landlord has to do it. So there has to be a process. Either the tenant does it, here's your filters, here's this is the process, and you get a little break in your rent. I don't know what goes on, but sometimes these things are negotiated. Locks are working, kitchen vents are working for the stoves, and then rodent-free. And communication brings possible resolution if proper resources are provided. So we're educating the landlords that we do have a tool in place. We need you to make sure that your units are up to what our standards of what we would like to see. I don't know, without coming down hard, but we have rules in place that says this. And these are normal rules. Most houses have to abide by these rules. Most homes, when you go get a building permit, you have to have the fire alarms in there.
Through the mayor.
One last comment.
You're going to stop me from speaking if I want to speak twice?
I'm saying go ahead and speak.
How do you educate a landlord if you don't know who the landlord is? We've gotten rid of the rental registry, so we don't know who our landlords are. The bad landlords are not going to be educated by you. They don't want to hear it. It's only the good landlords. And most of them don't need educating. So the idea that education has any place in correcting the severity of this problem is absurd. Education is helpful when you've got somebody who wants to learn. It is not helpful when you've got somebody who has no interest in it.
This brings up another question. So I'm guessing in our contract with Ptolemy on the rental registration, do we not own the data that was collected?
We do. Yeah.
Okay.
And we're actually in talks with them. So our IT department and their IT department are going to communicate about how we can gather that data after our contract.
Download that data and hold on to it, and then we use publicly available information data sets to update it as needed. But we don't want to give up that data.
No, it's ours, yeah.
Okay.
Then why get rid of the registry?
Well, at the last meeting, I offered to keep it, nobody wanted to, so it's over, okay?
You were against it.
I had changed my mind by the last meeting, and then nobody wanted to back me up. So I'll ask staff, do you have adequate direction about where to go from here?
So I think on the emergency rental assistance and the legal services, we're ready to go back and work with Coastside Hope and CLASPA and others, try to get data to support at what level we should be supporting and how to create the framework, and we'll bring back something that is pretty well baked with some backup, hopefully for your approval for implementation in the next fiscal year budget. I'm still a little unclear on the inspection side, if it's something that we should continue to pursue or table for now. So I think I would like a little more direction on that as far as the consensus of the council.
I personally would like us not to really spend, any more staff time on that right now. There might come a time where we feel it's necessary. I'd rather we make meaningful contributions via rental assistance and legal support, but I'm happy to hear from other council members on the issue of the home inspection. I'm going to poll you. Councilmember Nagengast?
I like that approach. I mean, we still are complaint-driven. We go out, well, health and safety issue. And if we do go forward, I like the idea of a working group together because, there's tenant and landlord. We keep saying tenant all the time, but there's also, protections for landlords too. Subleasing gets thrown in here, and I think subleasing can be a component that makes it sometimes difficult to find out something's going on. So I think before we commit to anything, I would table the inspection program for now. But I think eventually we might be looking at a working group.
Like, you may get feedback from legal and Coastside Hope that there's a need there, but you might just restrict your investment of time on discussions with those people as to need for now. Councilmember Brownstone, home inspection?
Yeah, I need to know more to figure out how that works, because the issue around that Vice Member Penrose brought about, like, how do you know who the landlord is? And you said, well, we want to bring up the idea of registration, but the real issue that came up was a voluntary registration. And then we heard back from staff that that wouldn't really work because landlords wouldn't volunteer. So then it became kind of a, what's the point?
Right.
So when you say you support registration, but then we heard back, well, if it's voluntary, it's not going to work. So we didn't really resolve that issue. I consider it unresolved. If you want some sort of registry to make it effective, it's either mandatory or not, because you wouldn't get enough volunteers. So that's the issue that this council ended up deciding. No, we weren't going to make it mandatory. So I just want to be clear that that's how it landed, so what happened. Yeah, I need to just learn more about the inspection process and how that even looks in other jurisdictions, so you feel like you're getting, I don't care if it's a random number of inspections, something that happens in that way. You don't know when there's going to be an inspection on rental properties. But I need to hear more. I don't know enough about it one way or the other. So.
Councilmember Johnson.
Well, it's pretty new, and we don't know a lot, but I think we need at some point, if we need it, and CoSite Hope, as indicated, people are saying that people wouldn't come to the council to talk about this, but maybe in the CoSite Hope or one of these workshops, they're going to bring forward if that need, and we can pool in that area too, and also get a kind of a registry our own through CoSite Hope of where the people are renting. So that would be the vehicle that people probably feel the safest. It would be somewhere like that.
That's
so
an interesting idea.
That's what I would do. The angle would be to go where people feel comfortable. The breakfast is at Lutheran Church, all the places that are offering lunches and things like that. We can kind of pool or get information and go from there. That's where the comfort level is. So that's where I would like to go. If we need to go there, and we need to do inspections, not something I would say that I'm excited to do, because you would think that everybody would have their homes up to snuff, but we found out in the past they're not. And we don't even know, honestly, do we have, when the registry went through, I know people personally in this town, and I'm not going to bring them up, that didn't register, and we know that. There's a bunch of them that aren't registered. The ones that were non-complying probably didn't register. So we have to, those are the ones you would find out at CoSite Hope, Lutheran Church, things like that, people complaining and talking. And once you get to know somebody in those environments, and I know, Paul, you donate your time on Saturdays or Sundays, you get to know the people that are doing it. And I know a couple people in my neighborhood, Dave, that goes and serves lunch and stuff at the Lutheran Church. Those are the people that you kind of get information, and we have a situation, and we need to address it. And that's, I think, the best place would be the places that people go. Not here, because they don't want, like you said, it's not something. But do they come into the city counter, or do they come into City Hall? Do people come into the counter?
Typically, no. It usually comes through one of these partner agencies. Yeah.
Where I would focus, and then see if we've got a pulse that says we need to address it, then we have to address it. But I think we should have a plan in place, and if we're learning from other cities, like Irma has done all this homework, I think we need to absorb all that and get these ideas. They're very creative ideas, but will it work? We don't know. This is new. It's a new idea, and the concept's new. So I think as we go along, we'll see what process will work, and then we can tweak the process until it does work properly. But first find out, what do we have for a problem?
Vice Mayor?
I think that it's a good idea to involve CoSite Hope in this. I don't know that everybody goes to CoSite Hope. I don't know how many people CoSite Hope sees and how many of them have complaints. I'd like that information. I think going to places like the Lutheran Church breakfast is not, the city doesn't have the resources to go around to all those places. And what do? They go around and befriend people to find out what's going on? No, that's anecdotal information that is not helpful.
So
I think it's extremely important that we find a way to make it easy for the vulnerable people in our community to come forward with their complaints. And I'd like to table this discussion too, because I don't think any of us know the extent of the problem. And I kind of doubt that CoSite Hope does too. I think they know something about the problem. But I'd like numbers. If we're talking about really investigating, I'd like numbers.
So let me just try to summarize what I've heard. That maybe it would be useful, but probably would be useful to talk to CoSite Hope and CLESPA about the issue of habitability. What's the extent of the problem? What do they hear? If it seems like they think it's worth looking more deeply at it, then that, I would say, would trigger this bigger conversation that you were talking about with landlords, tenants, but I would also engage property managers, because a lot of properties, the person who sees these things, I know from the property across the street from me where there'd been issues, the property manager is the point of contact. So Coastside Hope, CLESPA, conversation there, and then maybe moving forward to a larger conversation about how do we address this.
Can we include Alice in that? I think that makes total sense, since they're very much in touch with the ground of the people.
Yes, so any trusted agency who touches people.
I think we open it, and we have the cohort of CSFA providers who interact with these households on a lot of different levels. So I think the way you summarize it is great, and I think that clarification is important, that it's just not Coastside Hope or CLESPA, but we start by having our trusted partners who are interacting with these households in different ways, and some interact with different organizations more than others, help us start to quantify this issue before we take a bigger step forward.
Yes, don't make it a big deal or a big investment of time until we have a handle on, the scope of the problem. And we have that conversation when we're having the conversations about rental assistance and legal. So what I'm just saying is maybe not, go off and make this a big project yet. Councilmember Brunson?
And this quantifying and determining the scope of the problem, it's a very fluid situation, because as we know, starting at the federal government, then impacting the state government, so many programs are getting cut, whether it's food programs, everything. I think once we get a certain idea what some of the scope is, the thing I really want to get from these service agencies is, what are their recommendations, knowing these populations, to make it safe? What does it take to make it safe? And they're the experts, because they know those populations, because it could be pretty intimidating coming into City Hall or, filing a formal complaint. But what are their recommendations to make it a safe process? And that's what we don't really know for sure, because it's very scary.
One of the things you have to be careful of, service providers want service. They want more services, and they want more services funded. So that's why it's important to get more community perspectives on the issue, because if we have just one perspective or two perspectives, people serving the same community, you're going to get, the solution that serves them and their constituents. So it needs to be a larger conversation at a certain point.
No, I agree. We want to know from property owners, what's fair to them, to have these issues.
Beware of bias and escalation. And, looking for, what do they call it? Confirmation bias? Yeah. Let's be careful with that. It costs money.
I think I'm pretty clear.
I think I'm good.
Irma's doing the work, so I want to make sure she's clear.
I think I'm good. Thank you.
To the mayor, the Coastside Hope and CLESPA are on, so they're hearing this, so this is good. So they're getting one-on-one, because I'm seeing them on TV, so that's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd like to see more information from both of these agencies.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to wrap up this item, so I think you're good. All right. So right now I'm going to call for a 10-minute break. video screenings and activities at John L. Carter Memorial Park and other city facilities.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll give a short presentation. I'm sure you've seen the staff report, but as you know, Carter Park was remodeled and reopened last summer as a really high-end outdoor amphitheater and performance facility, and I think its primary functions are around performing arts and music, and our Summers and Music Festival and Shakespeare in the Park and those types of activities. But in deciding to move forward with this project and how it was designed, I think we envisioned some other outcomes as well, including other opportunities for community gathering, economic development, and to generate some revenues for the Parks and Rec Department. And as we went through this design and the permitting, one of the things we identified is the ability to, at the time, it was very focused on show movies, right? We don't have a movie theater here in town. There are limited opportunities for seniors and families and youth and adults to watch movies, and this was seen as an opportunity to do so. And so once the building, the facility was opened, we were looking at trying to find some support to get a really nice projector and screen so we could start moving forward with some of those activities. And then, of course, the World Cup came up, and it changed our thinking about this a little bit. And as we explored this, we realized that we want to make sure whatever solution we have isn't just optimal for nighttime use, but for daytime use, especially here on the coast where nights are always cooler, even on warm days. And so the ability to use the park during the day for these types of viewings would also be really, really beneficial. And that's what landed us on an LED screen versus a projector, because projection systems, even the highest end, are not going to provide a high-quality experience during daytime hours. We do have the advantage of the way the park is oriented, that the sun is at the back at all times, and so you don't have direct sunlight, but it would still impact the ability to watch something during daytime and even dusk hours and limit our ability to use this park for these purposes, which is why we landed on LED screens. It's a technology that's really exploded over the last several years and becoming a standard for audiovisual presentations. So as we thought about this, obviously one of the potential uses is this summer for these World Cup watch parties. The first game of the World Cup is on a Thursday at noon, and it's Mexico versus South Africa. There's probably going to be a lot of interest from our community, and it's at noon. So we would not be able to do this with a projector and a screen of any type. Again, other potential uses for this screen is movie screenings. We have been included now in the library permit. Libraries have access to movie rights. One of the biggest barriers to showing movies is the cost of getting rights to do public showings. It can be very, very expensive. Libraries have this special ability to do public screenings. There is a caveat: you can't charge money for admission. So they have to be free public screenings. Now, you can collect donations, you can sell concessions, there's other ways to generate revenues, but we are now included through a partnership with the library in that licensing, which means we'd have access to show all types of movies. And the thought is, especially with a daytime use, seniors, we could coordinate and collaborate with senior co-siders, and, Thursday or Tuesdays at 11, we could show older movies that the seniors would be interested in coming to watch. And, Friday evenings, maybe at 6 o'clock, we show Disney or other really family-friendly movies where families could come with their smaller children and have a picnic and watch a movie while it's still a little bit light out. And then, maybe at 9 o'clock, the PG-13 movies start for the horror movies or whatever for our teenagers. There's a lot of great opportunities, I think, for community gathering, some fundraising, and the ability to activate this park more often. The other thing that a screen would do was open us up for more opportunities for corporate events. We could rent it out for corporate retreats or trainings. Weddings were already kind of in our plans, and who knows if a wedding would want a giant LED screen, but, slideshows, videos are very popular. So there might be an add-on to the rental and use of this park where people could pay extra to have access to this technology and be really creative. And I think that's just the beginning. There's a lot of opportunities that we haven't thought of. And then depending on how we move forward with this, if we move forward with it, in talking with some of our partners, including local businesses and our nonprofits, if it was a portable solution, we would actually be able to rent this out for use at other locations as well, whether it's a business that has a garden in the back that wants to do a movie screening themselves, or some sort of event that requires this kind of technology. And we've already gotten feedback that that would be something of great interest to some of our businesses. Again, if it's portable, we could show the Sandlot out at Smithfield and do a fundraiser that way. There's just some cool opportunities if whatever we move forward with here is a portable option. So in exploring these potential uses with really the World Cup as our driving force on timeline, because it starts in June of this year, we've done a lot of research, a lot of work. We've met with several vendors that specialize in these different technologies, including one that does most of the work at the Moscone Center, which has tons of corporate events and utilizes this technology all the time, and landed on one that a portable LED screen is the right move here. And I'll share with you in a moment what we're recommending, because it really lends to our constraints as a small community with a small rec department and the lack of technical expertise that would be required for some of these solutions. One of the things we explored when we were looking at the costs was, okay, well, what if we can't afford to buy something this year, but maybe we could rent it? And so we've gotten some quotes for rentals, and what we found is the cost of a rental is pretty much as expensive as buying a unit, because of you don't get to set up, you don't go pick up a rental and go set it up yourself. They send a crew, they have to set everything up, there's staff time. And so it would be actually cost prohibitive to do a rental for anything more than 1 or 2 events. And even then, the cost of 1 or 2 events might be close to the cost of just purchasing a unit outright. We, of course, have been exploring sponsorships and donations. The city has an adopted sponsorship policy for Carter Park that creates some opportunities for people to sponsor certain amenities at the park. And we've gotten some interest, but we're not there yet. So the hope is, if we were to move forward with an acquisition, that we could continue to pursue sponsorships, and maybe by having it gives more interest that, hey, every time this thing fires up, your logo or your organization shows up on that screen, and it's advertising every time this thing gets used, whether it's a Carter Park or an offsite location. And so we then stepped back and said, look, the time is coming. We've got to make a decision here if we're going to meet the World Cup. We have some unforeseen revenues because of the movie that filmed here and some of the revenues we were able to acquire through that. We've had a lot of savings in our rec department, and within our Parks and Recreation budget, we have the funding to move forward with something like this now, with the hope of recouping those costs through a sponsorship, a donation, and, as we've mentioned, over time through renting out this equipment at Carter Park and elsewhere. So what we've recommended through our work with these different experts and our constraints and needs, these are called LED poster boards. They are frameless units, so the edge of the screen is just right there, and it's indistinguishable. They come on wheels. They're about 2 feet wide by a little over 6 feet tall. They roll, and they store in rolling cases to be really well protected. And what makes these ideal is, this image is trying to show, they're IP65 rated, which means for dust and rain, you can literally have them out in a rainstorm and they'll be fine. They're built for that. The only thing they're not built for is submersion. So, sorry, no underwater movie watching. But any kind of storm, the fog that we deal with here, the mist, these would continue to operate through it and not have any issues. What we would recommend is buying up to 8 of these units, which seamlessly hook together and then can be programmed to act as one large screen, up to 16 feet wide and 6.5 feet tall, which In our research, when you look at other cities that do like movies in the park, a 16-foot wide screen is pretty standard. So it wouldn't, and you'll see in the next slide here, it wouldn't feel like you're in a movie theater where the screen is this big thing in front of you, but it would provide for a really high quality outdoor movie experience. And again, part of it is that social gathering, that opportunity to be together and fundraise and enjoy this together. So this is a depiction of, at scale, of what it would look like on the stage at Carter Park. So what our recommendation is, we've gotten several quotes, and it looks like this will cost about $25,000. And our recommendation is to fund this from the Parks and Rec budget in this fiscal year, make this acquisition, continue to pursue cost recovery through donations or sponsorships, which would have to come back for your approval. And also through rental. We are working on the fees for Carter Park right now. Actually, tomorrow night at our Parks and Rec Commission, the recommendations will go to them, and we'll be coming back to a council meeting soon for the fees. And this is something that we would explore adding to the fees once we know we're going to acquire it. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions or provide any additional information.
Councilmember Nagenkast.
Well, apparently I'm the one that starts these things, so I'll throw some things out. And I did ask the city manager some questions. I'm going to bring them up again because I think they're important. I will acknowledge I was, the projector and screen is where my head was, but, I've seen the technology and it looks like it's changing. It seems more practical, but I have some follow-up questions, if we're going to use these, because you mentioned they can't be submerged, and that will bring up my questions later. But I'll just start on the questions that, I don't like. I shouldn't say I don't like. I'm concerned when we use terms like unforeseen revenues in the middle. We're doing an organizational study. We're still in a structural deficit. Frankly, I think, a lot of our budget concerns have been addressed because we fully fund full staffing, but obviously we don't have those positions filled. So we're going to have funds available, and especially we see that at the end of the year. And I know everything trues up the mid-budget years that goes back and shows, the prior year. I'm a little concerned about, making this kind of purchase in lieu of some of the other purchases we just had to do, the van, and then some things that were done with the van. But I just, 20 nickels makes a dollar, my mother used to say, so I'm a little worried, adding a little bit here, a little there. So my next question was going to be, how come we're not renting this to try it out? So the way I just understood what you said, the rental costs, because they have to set up, they're responsible for it. It includes the full setup, whatever that entails. So you said it was close to $20,000 just to set it up, or?
So for instance, one of the things we looked at is, could we have one of these companies bring in, it wouldn't be these units. Nobody rents these units. These are, people own them for one-off type things, but you can't rent these. What you would rent is they build a scaffolding and they bring in these 2x2 panels and install it and program it. And so just the mobilization cost for like a 1-day or 2-day event could be upwards of $10,000 for a unit like that. And so when we got a quote for doing it through the duration of the World Cup, not even the full duration, like a few weeks of the World Cup, we got a $50,000 estimate. And I believe if we continued to request quotes, it would be similar. This is a very reputable company that, again, does this work all the time, and they're kind of the standard in the industry for the area. So when you think of piloting it through a rental, sure, we'd bring in experts, they would set it up, they would manage it. That would be great, but the costs would exceed a purchase pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but again, I don't want to have us put the cart before the horse, because there's other things involved here. Like my next question is, we haven't completed the park. It's still, the notice of completion hasn't been finalized, and I'm concerned, what interest would the contract, we've been using that park pretty much now, and now we're scheduling events, so how does this work with not having the notice of completion filed?
I mean, Todd can speak to that. There's one last remaining issue that's being resolved right now, and that notice of completion should be filed soon, but I believe we have a substantial completion in place, right?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Matthew, and good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. So there is one outstanding item at Carter Park that we are working to fix, and that is the lights on the stairs. So we've had problems since inception, probably since design with those. They just never went in right. Next week, we're going to start doing the work with a third-party contractor. Should be done by the end of next week. We're going to give it another week just to test it, and we plan on taking the NOC to council on the May 19th meeting. So this should all be resolved before all the World Cup events. We're very hopeful that, based on some initial mock-ups that we've done for the fix for the lights at Carter Park, that we'll have an active solution done next week and should be able to move forward with a notice of completion soon after that.
Okay, well, but it's not completed.
It is not completed, not at this time, that is correct.
And then the next question goes with that, parking. If we're advertising, come to our park, where's everybody park? Because that leads into my also into, is this a World Cup sanctioned viewing location?
Yes, so we've been very involved and engaged with what's called the Host Committee, which is a local nonprofit that partners with the World Cup to bring the regulations down to the local area. And there's two different types of watch parties that can be hosted. There are large community events with thousands of people, and then there's smaller events with less than 1,000. We fall into the less than 1,000, and the requirements shrink down quite a bit. So what we're looking at would be fully in compliance with the World Cup regulations, and we continue to monitor any changes. The host committee is really great, and they work with San Francisco Peninsula, the Visitors Bureau, to make sure that gets distributed out to the cities and the businesses that are looking to do these types of events.
But so we're looking to be sanctioned by FIFA?
We wouldn't need a sanction. We just have to meet certain criteria, which we're fully prepared to do that.
But so then are we making this as if it's a World Cup? Where I'm going with this, I always thought it'd just be a local place where our town could go watch the games.
Oh, and that is the intent. I mean, we would also work with the hotels and others that say a person comes in to watch, the Swiss team who has a game here, and then the Swiss team heads north to play up in Seattle. The hotels could say, look, come and stay here, go to the game, make a vacation out of it. By the way, while you're here, we got this really cool park in town where you can come watch a game. But really, the idea for this is more local-based watching. I'm trying to understand the question. If the concern is that, like, the World Cup would somehow market our events?
If there's some more marketing in this, other than this is just our because I just thought this would be our local viewing spot, because we're in a hurry. We have to I get it, the World Cup's starting, and they're not going to wait for us. So we're hurrying on this, but then, okay, who are we advertising this to? To me, if it was local, folks would walk. I mean, if those that know there, but those that have no idea where our park is, and I will say, people don't know where Carter Park. I had to take Sam Licardo's aide. He was looking for Carter Park, and then at the ribbon cutting, I took him down to show him where it is, and he had no idea. A cool park, but not knowing where it is. So, first, how folks know it's there, and then the parking is what I'm concerned with.
Yeah, the parking, that's always been a concern, and that's been addressed as a bigger part of the project. We did a parking study and identified how many parking spaces were really within a walking distance of the park. We partner with not the shopping center. They really are restrictive of how that gets used, because it takes away from their ability to have their clients come and use businesses there. But the Stone Pine Business Park adjacent and Mariners Church have been great partners, and they allow us to, on a one-off basis, do parking there, and that's where we get like our accessible parking for ADA purposes.
Accessible parking's over there?
Yeah, and it's very close, actually. If you park at the front of the office buildings at Stone Pine, the office buildings, you just walk right in. Maybe I could take you there, but we've addressed all of that, and when we market it and when we host events there, we let people know you should walk or bike, and we typically have people staff the entryway to the shopping center to tell people you got to park, next door. And direct traffic. And, even my son got some service hours at the Summer's End by being one of those people that directed people to the other parking. So parking's always going to be a concern for for Carter Park. That's really not related to the World Cup events. It's related to any events we hold down there. And that comes through our marketing, our advertising, making sure we've made coordination for those that do need to drive. But that's not unique to the World Cup. That's for everything. Yeah.
Okay. Again, well, that kind of ties in with signage. For saying it's at Carter Park. Where's Carter Park? So I didn't know if we had something for that.
In our next item, one of the items on our list for priorities next year is to take the sign package that was developed as part of the project, but not included in the phase of construction, and move that forward so that we can get the signage we need from Main Street and get people directed down there from Main Street.
So So where are we going to store this at? There?
So we still need to explore that, but as I said, when you buy these units, they come with these rolling flight cases that fit two. They nest side by side and securely fit inside. And once we understand what those flight cases look like, I think ideally we store this at Carter Park while we're actively using it, but I think to your question about submersibility and the concerns that Carter Park could flood, we probably wouldn't store it there during the winter time. We would store it offsite, and we would need to explore that, but we're not talking about a lot of storage. Once they're in these cases, it's pretty compact, actually.
Yeah, well, to me, it's the location, too, because it's out of sight, out of mind. Somebody else is going to get wise to that too, and I worry about security.
Well, now they are.
you know what I'm saying, if it's there.
Yeah.
But
again, which is why I don't think we would keep them at Carter Park all the time. But one of the advantages of having that rolling door there is easy to get it in and out of off the stage.
Because the idea would be it'd roll it up the
roll it up the ramp and put it in the rec van. We could probably get 3 or 4 of them at a time in the rec van, lay them down flat, and then we could move them to whatever offsite location we needed to move them to.
And then the signage, storing, and then again, and just when you did mention partnering with. Is that something they would co-own this, or is this something be totally separate?
No, we would own this as part of our recreation department, but I'll give some examples of what we're thinking for the World Cup. For different matches, we could partner with. We happen to have the high school varsity girls soccer coach here. The high school soccer programs. There's a soccer club here in town, the Boys and Girls Club, and. Because one of the issues we're always going to have with our limited staffing is how do we staff these events, especially if they're frequent. And by partnering with nonprofits that might share in some of the fundraising and provide that staff, you get increased marketing, you get increased bandwidth and support, and an opportunity for them to fundraise, for us to fundraise for our programs and for Carter Park. For movie nights, an organization like Friday Night Live, YLI presented a couple of weeks ago on their programs, and this fits right into, they're looking for safe, sober activities for teenagers on the coast. They could sponsor, a monthly movie night and they would help coordinate it, and then they could collect donations, and either us or them could sell concessions. So that's the kind of partnerships we're thinking about here.
Okay, all right, that concludes right now. Thank you.
Councilmember Brownstone.
So we would get this thing insured too, right, for damage or?
We'd have to explore the cost of insurance versus, the risk. But yeah, that would be an opportunity.
Yeah. Do you think it's big enough for movies? Like for another $5,000, could we get it bigger? So
you can't get a unit like this any bigger. To go bigger, you'd have to go to that unit I described that we would rent, and the logistics of setting it up and storing it it just changes. Brian, our IT analyst, discovered this, and this is a good solution for us.
So if you're at the back of the amphitheater, do you feel it's?
I've been down there a couple of times. I think if you're sitting at the very top, again, it'd be kind of like watching TV at home.
Yeah.
There's still, I think still people would, for certain events, want to be out there. But if you're kind of a third of the way down and below, yeah, it is sufficient. And again, we've looked at what other cities do for their movies in the park, which is a very common practice. San Francisco, Redwood City, and they tend to do inflatable screens. Redwood City has something similar to this on a trailer, and this is about the size they come. So this is pretty normal. People know you're not getting a movie theater experience or even a drive-in experience. You're just getting something that is nice to watch on, and you can watch the event or the movie while participating in a different way.
Can the screen go up at all?
We could look at that. I was thinking about that, but I think we would be careful of that because it's the way they attach together and they're on wheels. I think we want to be very careful. They're stable the way they come. Do we want to try to modify that and cause issues? So I think it's something we would look at, but I'm not sure it'd be necessary or practical.
Right. Yeah, I do think it would bring a lot of folks interested in events. You can broadcast concerts, you could broadcast a meeting, a company meeting, and have guest speakers, be zoomed in. It's great to see a live concert video broadcast, sporting events, World Series, hopefully with the Yankees in it.
Election night.
Election nights, results, yeah. So
that's election night out could have a whole new meaning, couldn't it?
I was frankly surprised that the cost was only $30,000, actually. I thought it would be so much more expensive. I didn't realize the technology is such that you get such a bang for a buck for $30,000. So I think it's a great idea. I think a lot of people will be interested in having events, and $30,000 seems like a pretty reasonable investment.
Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I love the idea. I think it's a great idea. And I think you will get sponsors. I don't think that's going to be that hard. The one issue that I have with Carter Park as it is right now is the concession stand is not adequate. And if you really are inviting people to come to watch a movie, you need to provide popcorn. You got to provide,
we have a rolling popcorn cart in our rec department already.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Good.
And cotton candy. Our rec staff are trained on making cotton candy.
Anyway, I think that part is important, but I think it's a great idea.
To create a great experience, you need some of that as well.
Yeah.
Councilmember Johnson.
I like the idea. I am concerned about the stairs and tripping and falling that I pointed out, or you guys pointed out. I saw it. I'd like to make sure that that's done. I do have concerns if are we ready to rock and roll with Carter Park? Are we signed off so we don't have a liability issue that's sitting there? Because I kind of pointed that you guys actually siliconed it back up and it fell down. It's not getting resolved. Then I do have concerns about wheeling it up the pathway, all the way up and up around the corner, all that movement? Do we have, are we going to carry them? Are they heavy? Are we going to have a dolly? I know these are petty little things, but the more you move equipment and you just drop it, you crack a screen. It takes 2 seconds. So I'm concerned about that. Do we have, if we do store them at Carter Park, do we have a security system at Carter Park?
We do not have a security system at Carter Park.
Because we got a $30,000 unit, $40,000 unit sitting in there, and that's a dark place. The word gets out that's there. That's going to be easy target. I'm worried about, like, if we can get an insurance. This was just brought up, like if something were to go wrong. I did reach out to the company to try to get some specs, and I emailed them. I haven't gotten anything. Have you gotten a response from them?
We haven't been talking directly to the manufacturer. We're talking with companies in California that are distributors of these and supply them, and there's several of those in California. Yeah,
because my concern was corrosion, but this thing is apparently corrosion or waterproof somewhat, is what you're telling me. Those were the questions that I emailed them, but they haven't responded back. Let's see, what else? Oh, sound system. Do we have a sound system, or does this unit come with a sound system?
We have a really nice portable Bose sound system that we would use for this. It's already been tested. Ultimately, we would like a high-end mounted system that's outdoor rated and just permanently out there. But we have a system already that can be used and has been tested and really sounds amazing.
And then the other one was the group, I guess. We have the licensing, what's it called? What's the soccer that's called FIFA?
For FIFA?
Yeah. Do we have, you have that all secured? I mean, that's...
We're working through it. Obviously, there's, we will have to buy a commercial sports package to show it, and we haven't done that if we don't have the ability to show it. But again, the host committee has provided really great support, and we've been involved in all of their trainings, and they have a playbook, and anything we do out there will meet the requirements of FIFA.
So you don't need what they're calling a public performance license, or you do?
We won't, because our events won't be large enough to require that.
And that would be 1,000 and less, right?
1,000 per event, yeah.
And how many people are, I think 700 at Carter Park?
That's the max. I don't think we would ever get that many for a single showing.
Okay. And then on, who's going to watch over the unit? Like, let's say we have an event. Are we going to have staff that's available to set it up, watch over it, put it away, all these things? Do we have all that dialed in?
Yeah, and what we would do is for rentals, that would be part of the cost of renting the unit, is paying for a building attendant that would be there to staff it. They'd be trained on how to set it up, take it down, troubleshoot it, all of those things.
And then when we do have the events, are we at some point going to have an indication of parking in the correct areas in the business park, as you indicated, in the Mariners Church, I think it was, is that what you said?
Yeah, that's often what we use. The post office during off hours also has been a good partner. I don't see anything permanent going in, because we have to work this out on a event by event basis, because obviously Mariners, if we wanted to schedule an event during one of their church services, their response would be, well, you can't use our parking lot. So there's coordination that happens for all of these events. But we've had experience now with several events, and this happened before we remodeled Carter Park, because we've done events at Carter Park for years. That between temporary signage and volunteers, you can get people directed to the right parking, and we haven't had any issues with the Stone Pine Shopping Center parking lot.
And then are we going to be able to advertise using Instagram and Facebook and our website that we're having this event and promote this event, and so that we can make it successful, and also make sure that we have, that we were sending that message out to walk or bike also?
Yeah, that would need to be part of our outreach for any event, is encouraging people to walk, bike, or park downtown and enjoy the businesses and walk down to Carter Park.
And is this event with the World Cup, this would be a free event? Is that what it's going to be?
Yeah, I envision free events. Well, one, you can't charge for these events. So they would be free community events, but again, we can sell concessions, the nonprofits can collect donations, those types of things. So.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
You did ask a question about transport and your concern about that. So as I shared, I was a DJ for a long time, so I'm familiar with some of these things, but there's these things called flight cases, and, well, we got one right here. So picture a box similar to that that's built specifically for these units. There's foam padding inside that's cut to fit these units. That's how we would move these. We would never roll these around other than just getting them out onto the stage. Anytime we're putting it in a van, taking it anywhere for storage or for a rental, they would always be in these flight cases, which are padded, and they're called flight cases, so you literally put them on an airplane and ship these things overseas if you needed to. So they would be very well protected, and these are units that come with the screens when you buy them.
I looked at the brochure, it actually shows that, and it's 2 per flight case.
2 per case, yeah.
So I looked through the whole thing, checked it out.
So when you talk about rentals, you're not talking about people coming and get them and taking them some other place.
No. What we're thinking is someone's doing an event at, Johnston House or one of our local businesses that has an outdoor space and says, hey, we got an event, we want to rent it. We'd have a fee schedule, and part of that fee schedule would be for delivery, setup, and they'd have to pay the hourly cost of a staff member to be there during that event because this is our equipment. So,
I wouldn't feel
never handing it
comfortable-
off to someone else.
You'd
No.
have somebody else take this on and then break it, and then, it's just got to be supervised.
Yes, absolutely.
I wouldn't feel comfortable, any other way.
Yeah.
But I think you need a security plan, a storage plan, a staffing plan. I mean, I'd like to see all these things, in writing. Maybe not the security plan. You want to probably keep that to yourself. But I think this needs to be, written down so that we know that,
Yeah, and that would be included, I think, with the fee schedule as well. All that needs to go together.
Yeah, all that information I think is really important.
Sure.
And so you've looked into our insurance coverage for this equipment is?
This would be a separate insurance policy, so we would have to look into that and determine if it makes sense given the cost of the equipment. So that is something we need to explore further.
Yeah, I think you would want to do that before you make any purchase. Yeah. And then have you talked to anybody who uses this equipment to get like user testimonies about how it works? And
We've done that through the vendors, yeah. And again, the feedback has been great.
feedback from other customers?
Through the vendors. I haven't talked directly to any customers, but through the vendors that sell these units. And ultimately, they're the ones that we were looking at a different unit that is more expensive, and they recommended this because of how we wanted to use it. Correct.
Yeah, I mean, might be nice to get, if you can, customer testimonies to help identify, any issues.
Sure.
And then somebody shared with me what I thought was a good idea, is that, allowing maybe the businesses in the shopping center to, operate the concession stand. If they can make a little money selling stuff down at the park, maybe they'd be a little, more open to having parking there. Just finding a way to enlist their support and incentivize them to allow access to the parking lot, I think would be, a good idea.
Yeah, one of the things we've hoped for some of the festivals is if they would even set up like delivery stations where you wouldn't have to go all the way to the business to order, if you had special packages, like, hey, I just want, your cheesesteak and fries, and you pay for it at Carter Park, and you either pick it up just at the top of the stairs or even it gets delivered. So we continue to try to work with the businesses, and I think part of it is having more events. We only had a few events last year, and then, the season ended. Going forward, we would like to be able to have those kind of partnerships with the businesses because, frankly, we've got built-in concessions, right, for real food, a variety of different foods. It's a very diverse set of restaurants up there.
Yeah, so I like the idea of having, the film capability. I just want to make sure that we have a plan, and that plan is in writing, and we know what we're getting into insurance-wise. It's easy to get really excited, Carter Park, let's do this, let's do that. I think we need to be sensible, too, and just try to, contain ourselves a little bit. Keep it real.
There's one thing I noticed also, and Matthew, you might be able to correct me if I'm wrong. There are 8 units total. You don't have to use all the 8 units. You can use singular units one at a time. So if you want to put 2 together, if they have a small space, let's say somebody else is using it, or just one panel. So you can use 1 to 8 panels total. Correct?
That's correct, yeah. And, for certain formats, like an older movie that is not widescreen, you'd only pull out as many panels as you need to show it full screen. So they're very, very flexible and very user-friendly. From all of our investigation, it's a very simple setup and coordination with that.
Then you come up with a fee structure of 1 panel fee, 2 panel fee, 8 panel fee, and things like that.
So, Councilmember Johnson, where are you authorizing this purchase?
I would like to get all the details figured out first, but I'm excited about it. But I'd like to have all the answers and I would love to get a feedback from somebody, a city or somebody that's used it and over a period of time. I know if it's a new product, you're probably not going to get that, but it'd be great if we heard 1 year of use and it worked flawlessly. And yes, it's like buying a car. I'd want a test drive. It'd be great if we could get a test drive out of this thing. If the manufacturer could do a display. This is a pretty big investment, and we want to see the quality of it. There's nothing worse than getting something that, it's from China. It's going to be somewhat good. Most of their products are good. They copy really well, and the burnout rate and all these little stats that I did an AI on, they don't really give it in this unit at all. And that's what I was asking for. So we're kind of chancing it. I'd like to hear what the feedback is and see how long it lasted and the quality. But I'm excited about it, yes.
Has anybody on staff actually seen it operate?
No, we're trying to get access to one of them that's here locally somewhere. So that is something we're working towards, and we would do before we made a purchase.
Okay. Councilmember Nagengast, where do you come down?
I'm still, there's still pieces I would want completed. I still want to know, make sure we're clear on the parking, that the park is completed. To me, that's a fundamental issue. I was trying to figure out how long does it take to get this if you bought it?
We'll get a lead time on it.
Because to me, in the first world, what you're trying to do, first World Cup game is?
June 11th.
June 11th, so there's some time. Yeah. But I don't want us, this is I think a big decision, and it's kind of cool. Again, I was all on projectors, but now knowing you can, show daytime, you can, for younger adults or older adults even, daytime becomes more practical for a lot of us, and the ability to do that so we're not waiting until summertime. It's 9 o'clock at night before it's dark. So I like that, but I'm not all there with the parking and...
Let me clarify.
Yeah.
Are you willing to give direction tonight to move forward with the purchase, or are you saying you would like more information before you say move forward with the purchase?
I want more information.
You want more information, and you wanted more information. Councilmember Brownstone.
I would hope the vendor would give you the name of a number of customers, maybe a dozen, and call them up and then see if any of them are close. Are any of them close? So then you could really ask a lot of questions. I'd prefer How long has this particular model been on the market?
It's a fairly new model. I don't know the exact time frame, but this is new technology. Yeah.
So is the prior model been out for 2 years? You know what I mean? Is there a prior model that's been out for a couple of years that we can go and check out with people? That would be great. I like what the mayor said about getting the other pieces of data. I would probably think to hold off on rentals. I mean, if we can get enough events that start, only because I'm a little wary of, moving something that big around. And people who are moving it really, are careful, know what they're doing. Even if you know what you're doing, moving something that big, things can happen. So I feel like maybe the half panels wouldn't be, so bad, but moving the whole shtick might create more risk. So maybe not jump into that too quick, until we're sure we can handle it even on, the premise of Carter Park.
So may I summarize?
Yeah.
You're saying that you want some more information, you want staff to do a little more research, but what are you saying about moving forward with the purchase? Are you saying hold off until you do a little more due diligence? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, I think you at least want to look at it yourselves, and speak to the customers.
Yes.
Because vendors do have confirmation bias.
That's exactly right.
They'll confirm whatever the heck you say you need it for. So, you do want to have some more customer, I think, input would be great.
Vice Mayor.
Yeah, is there any way you could get the screens to Carter Park for a trial run before buying them?
I don't think so. I don't think that's possible, but certainly getting our eyes on it is part of the process.
So getting
wherever they're located. Yeah.
Okay, and then the other question I have is, if you're talking about getting feedback from customers, and this is new technology, it sounds like you can't do it.
It'll be limited feedback is my guess. We're not going to have extended use, but the company's been around for a while, so I think to Robert's point, at least earlier versions of technology, maybe they won't be the rolling cabinets, but the screens that they use, are they durable? Do they last a long time? What's their lifespan? Those types of things. Am I kind of hearing that right? Even if the units themselves don't have a long, they're newer units, but they're coming from the same manufacturer and they're similar, that also is helpful for you.
And we were talking about insurance, but I guess also what are the warranties actually?
I was just going to say.
Right, okay.
What about warranties?
On it, so.
What about returns? All that stuff's important information.
Yeah.
And I'm going to throw my hat with the 3 other council members who've spoken already about, I'm not ready to give direction to move forward until we, tie down, more of this information. I think it's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have more?
But let's hear from the Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I guess I feel the same way. I think it would be nice if Matthew knew exactly what information he needed to gather, because he is under a time crunch to get this in time for the World Cup. So it would be nice to give him a list of things to do.
Yeah, I'm hearing insurance, warranties, feedback from other customers. Obviously, we want to get our eyes on it.
The plans, how we do everything, how it's...
Okay, yeah.
You're taking this to the Parks and Rec Commission tomorrow night, right?
We weren't planning to because, part of it is this is within my purchasing authority, but it's such a big deal. We kind of pulled it and it's like, no, let's have some public conversations. They're excited at this use. They're the ones that recommended that we should really pursue movies and events at the park. So they're very excited about it. We haven't weighed in with them on the units themselves. I assume it'd be a similar conversation. So, and it's not agendized, so we can't talk about it tomorrow night. So.
I think you have a handle on the information that you need to get. So.
I've got a couple of follow-ups. Paul, we'll do some follow-up to ensure that you understand that we have the right to use the park and we're not creating new liability. And ideally, by the time we purchase these units, the closeout's done. And, there's some other things that we'll be doing with the park and the contracts, but it'll be buttoned up. The parking. I'm not sure I understand what you're looking for from a parking, because we've already kind of addressed how we manage parking. We did that before we opened the park.
Then remind me. I mean, I have the plan, and that's how I see what the parking plan is. 2 people standing at the driveway saying, park that way.
It's kind of event by event.
And then
We could put
accessible
something in
parking,
writing.
that's how we do our accessible parking, and we're okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
I think the parking is really a separate issue here. I think I'd like us to focus on the recommendation before us. And I think you just bring it back in a couple of weeks with more information, and then, we can make a decision here.
Okay. And certainly I'll probably check in with you as I go through my notes and make sure we're catching everything so that we can have everything for you at the next meeting and know we're good to go. So
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
And we have another big item coming, so let's, public comment. Is there anybody in the audience or online who would like to comment on the item of the recommended purchase of some film technology for Carter Park? I don't see anybody in the audience. Is there anyone online raising their hands? I don't see any raised hands online, so I think we can move this item to 11C.
great. We need to switch presentations. Thank you, Irma.
Oh. All right. Okay. Let's see.
While we're pulling that up, I can just give a quick background. So this item is to continue discussion of our council priorities work plan for the upcoming fiscal year and really the next 2 fiscal years. We've historically done this on a 2-year rolling basis. So I don't think I need to give a lot of background on our process for setting priorities. We've done our normal steps, including listening sessions and a council priority workshop back in March. That workshop really focused on establishing the list of projects that we have coming forward and that are beyond our kind of day-to-day work, and identifying if there are additional things that the council needs us to focus on or work on and make sure we have resources for in our budget. So what we've done since the priority setting session is take all of that information and compile it into a very high-level work plan. This is not the level of detail that we would finalize it with, but it helps us to just organize it and see it and make some decisions on it. And so what we've done is taken this very long list of different projects and ideas and loosely organized them into several different categories. In this case, there's 6 categories. And what we want to do tonight is go through this list and identify any of these projects or programs that you just don't think we should even be spending time on over the next 2 years. Hopefully we're not adding new things, because that's how we spend a lot of our time at the priority setting, is identifying additional things that were not already listed, and then getting some level of prioritization from you so that when we come back in June with the work plan, it's prioritized, it has more details about the steps we will take related to each project, and some timelines for delivery on each of them. And that way you can adopt that and we can start implementing those plans. So that's the goal tonight. There's really, 3 things we want to establish. Are the lists correct for the next 2 years? Is there anything we need to add to or take away from those lists? Number 2, what is the prioritization we want to put on certain things here? Are there things that are less important or can wait versus things that are more urgent? And then kind of loosely, are the categories right? We can always change them. We can organize this information differently if that's what you prefer, and that'll help guide us towards a final work plan. The list has been slightly updated since we published the agenda. There are copies of the amended list by the door. We will be updating it on the Granicus site for the attachment, and then you all have copies of the updated list. I dropped it on your table here, and it's just the couple of items highlighted in yellow that have come up that we need to address as well. And the color coding, green is stuff we're already actively working on. Doesn't mean we can't stop. but it's important to know that there's already time and energy and resources being put into it. Items that are blue are things that are mandatory and we really don't have a choice on. And then items that have an asterisk, we just wanted to point out those came up as a priority for our Parks and Recreation Commission, which, their role is to advise you on and staff on activities and things we should be working on. So I think that's all the context, and what the mayor and I talked about earlier is kind of going by group. So each slide in front of you contains all of those on the list from the document that was attached, and that way we can kind of look at it group by group and at least work our way through it. And so I think what we had talked about is the council members, if they so wish, can comment on anything they'd like to see removed from this list. Again, we can add things if we need to, but hopefully we've already worked through that part of the process, and then anything that really is a top priority from these lists. Is that fair? Great.
Ask the council, we have one speaker slip. Would it be okay with everybody if I took that now? The speaker is Harvey Rarbach.
If you look at the list, it's really incredible. I don't think there's any way in hell that you can actually implement all that. But my comment today has to do with two real long-term items that are on the list, on the item about public health, that have a real possibility of making a big difference on the entire coast side, not just Half Moon Bay. And those two items are, first, to have a special district that would deal with water and sewer along the entire coast side. We've talked about it before. It's on your priorities list. I would like to bring that up in a priority. I think it's really important. I think it's going to take a few years probably before it gets implemented, but a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. The other item that's on your work plan has to do with implementing a healthcare district. I've been trying to get an urgent care facility, along with a lot of other people, for the last 3 or 4 years. And it's just pretty clear that without a source of funding to have an urgent care facility, we're not going to be able to do it. We're just too small an area. If, and this is again a long multi-year process, we're going to get a healthcare district implemented that would then have the taxability to create funding for much more healthcare, which, if you talk to people, is really important on the coast side, something we don't have. And unless we get some source of funding, and I can't think of any other way beside implementing a healthcare district, that we need to do that. So these are two items that are long range, but I think they're really important. They're going to take a while, but if either or both are implemented, I think the coast side will be better for it. So I urge you to raise the priority of those two items. Thank you.
Thank you, Harvey. I see no other speakers in person. Is there anyone online who would like to address the council priorities?
There are no online speakers.
Thank you. Okay, so if we could bring back that first category, organizational health and excellence.
Thank you.
Looks like it's
the camera just went out,
We're
so
having
it's
a
just
technical issue that just came
should
up.
take about 30 seconds.
But in the meantime, the worksheet you have in front of you and the worksheet that was attached to the staff report is the same list you see here, with the exception of the new item 15, which is website ADA compliance, which is a new state mandate.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're going to focus on by group, and I'm going to ask you for your comments. But basically, I'd like to hear what your priorities are. and those are mostly in the black. Green's already in progress, blue is legal mandates, so we're mostly concerned about the bold items, the bold and black. And then if you want to delete anything or add anything, adding is allowed. We want to use this judiciously and have discussion about it. So I'm going to go around the dais, and I'm going to start with Councilmember Johnson. Can you address organizational health and excellence? Only the black.
I've got a process.
Okay. Councilmember Nagengas, would you like to start? All right.
Bookshelf here. I looked at, and of course my printer at home, green and blue, kind of did the same thing. So it helped, getting the handout here, it really helps identify what those are. So, but we're doing the black anyways. I kind of looked at 1 through 5, kind of were all tied together. There's some things that I know we're doing as part of the study that will come out of the study. It could be even, the staff training development could be part of the organization, coming out of this. So I kind of thought 1 through 5 were kind of attached together. Yeah, what was the other? So the 113, that courtyard improvement, what is that?
So it's not an active project, but when we built the corporation yard, it was built as phase 1. The design includes other features, including a workshop building for storing equipment, for staff to be able to do projects within. We created a pad on part of the site that could be the location of that building, but we don't have the funding, we don't have the ability to move forward with that. So it's on the list as a question more than anything. Is this something you want us to consider moving forward? What I will say, and I apologize for not sharing this context, we included CIP projects here that are kind of in the pipeline. Just for context, we'll be having an item probably at the next meeting to talk about our CIP for the coming year. And if that also expedites things tonight, we can talk in more detail about some of those projects. But if there's things you have questions about, maybe we put that out there and that helps us prepare for the next meeting.
Yeah, I think that will help the CIP because usually that's what I tend to focus on first. So those items, and there's that whole transportation, circulation, mobilities, mostly CIP, a lot of CIP in there, I shouldn't say mostly.
Yeah. And Parks and Rec, there's a lot there as well.
So, and then I guess I need to follow up because it says /construction. Of course, that CIP, that City Hall reconfiguration. And now maybe part of this is me because last year we had priorities, but we didn't have a work plan. Was that it?
We had discussions about priorities. Ultimately, the council didn't adopt official priorities, and so that's why a work plan wasn't developed.
So we're working off a list that's 2 years old?
No, this is just a list of what we're working on. The previous priorities have kind of been set aside. A new council, approach. It's been a couple of years. So.
All right. So what you did, and some of the titles are a little different.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what you've done and put in what you are working on. That's the blue-green. Whether it's a mandate. Or that's
the ones that in blue we're not necessarily actively working on yet, but we will have to. We really don't have any discretion on the items in blue.
So I'm just assuming that gets done. It's a required.
Yeah.
I don't think.
But it's there for context for the scope and scale of what we have in front of us. Yeah.
All right. So, and then, so what is the City Hall reconfiguration?
So we've just done some initial work with a space planner to identify what could be done downstairs to address some security concerns, workflow issues, and just the space needs. As you recall, 2 years ago when our annex, which is where our entire admin services team was housed, when that lease expired, we moved everybody into City Hall. And the thinking was, well, we've got some staffing positions open, we have some remote work policies, could we squeeze everybody into City Hall? And I think in a lot of ways the experiment has been really great. We get good feedback, everybody loves being in the same building, you get better interaction, but it's tight. And I think as we go through the organizational study and staff up, we're going to run out of space very quickly unless we're taking some thoughtful approach. So we've started just with some reconfiguration planning, and depending on what comes of that and the costs, then we may approach the council with an actual project to move forward on.
Okay.
So
that'll show up next meeting then?
Yeah,
Because it's
there will be more details.
So we're not going to really talk about it tonight. I just wanted to make sure I understood.
But that's what that is, yeah, is looking at City Hall, especially the first floor, and making sure that we have the space to serve the public, to keep staff safe and secure, and have the space we need to do our jobs effectively. Yeah.
Okay. So then I guess 8 and 9, which, refresh me again, the commission committee appointment process? What is it we're not?
So this is going back several years, and this is a good example of one that really is at your pleasure. We got complaints maybe 2 cycles ago that we didn't really have a formal process or a written process for appointing people to commissions and committees here at the city. There's just been kind of a tradition of each council member gets to appoint somebody and then it gets reviewed, and we had some issues. We brought back something 2 years ago after the election or around the election in anticipation of new appointments. It wasn't very well received, and so it was tabled again. So this is kind of a, hey, do you want us to work on this still, or are you okay with how things are going and we move on from it?
Oh, okay. I mean, I don't feel one way or the other on this unless others do. Does this have something to do with whether council are appointing people from their districts or not?
It could.
Oh, it could.
It could.
So
yeah.
that maybe could be something. But I don't know. This process seemed to work for me. I'm just my last year or so I don't know.
Yeah.
But there, and then the benefits exploration, I thought that was out there. We're waiting till after negotiations and everything that if that comes up. So again, I just 1 through 5, I see there are 3 black in there. I just kind of looked at those kind of all together, that we would address it. They kind of lead into each other. Yeah. That's it for me on the first.
Councilmember Ralston?
Yeah, I agree with, I agree with Councilmember Nagengast. The matrix study, that's exactly what we'll be finding out. Are there needs for, so all that will be happening as part of that. So it's an ongoing priority. Number 8, council benefits exploration. I think we already voted to put that on an agenda, didn't we? Future agenda?
No, the decision, when we did a study session on that several months ago, and the decision was to wait till after labor negotiations were complete and then bring it back for discussions. So to some degree, yes, it was, let's bring it back later. But and that's why it's on the list, because it's on our radar and something we would bring back unless we were told otherwise.
So based on what you just said, I don't know when the union or negotiations should be completed by the end of
the fiscal year and as part of this year's budget.
Right.
Correct.
But we're talking of FY 2026 through 28 priority work plan. So in a sense, we're already committing to going back and looking at that.
We probably wouldn't address the council benefits exploration until after July.
Yeah.
That's why it's on this work plan.
So July, okay, got it. Okay, just want to get the timing on that. Yeah, otherwise I have no other questions with the list as it is.
So, yeah, I agree. I think 1 through 5 are sort of part of the matrix study, so I wouldn't call them out separately. You just addressed the council benefits exploration. Will come forward after the MOU. I'm okay with removing number 9, commission committee appointment process. It seems to me that given everything else that's going on, that's kind of low priority. Yeah, so I would favor striking that. And then I guess we're going to hear more about the Corporation Yard Improvement Project as part of the CIP. So that's my thinking on that. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I find this list extremely confusing. The first 5 things on here, it was not my priority that core services identification and planning or staff training and development, they weren't on my list of priorities. So you're mixing up CIPs, things that you are already doing or think should be done, and CIP projects. Makes me crazy. I don't know how to deal with it. You're doing the matrix study. That's what the first 5 things are about. So why are they even on the list? We have to do the LUP implementation. We've already doing the sewer rate Prop 218 study. Council benefits, I don't care about. Commission and committee appointment process, I don't care about. Corp Yard Improvement Project phase planning, if that's on a list of priorities, that's not my priority. So that's what I have to say.
Could I ask a clarifying question? Would you agree that the matrix organizational study is a priority?
We're already doing it.
Right.
Right, so it has nothing to do with a list of priorities. It's being done.
We're doing that, so maybe that doesn't have to come back on the list.
Well, part of this process is there's kind of 2 phases of work city staff do. There are day-to-day routine responsibilities, right? Processing applications, providing customer service, maintaining our parks and our facilities. That's our day-to-day work, and that takes up a ton of our time. And then in the rest of our time, we work on projects that we may work on it for a time period, it'll be finished, we move on. And in order for us to take on new projects, we have to prioritize and identify what's important and what's not. And so you can't do that if you don't know everything that we're working on. And so what this list really represents is everything that is outside of our routine day-to-day work. And it's an opportunity for you all to say, why are you doing this? Well, you shouldn't be doing this, or we don't want to do this. So I understand your point that these may not be things that you're prioritizing, but if we're going to add things to staff workload, it needs to be in the context of what we're already doing or planning to do or have to do. And this is how we've always done this process. So I get that a lot of these things on your list might not be your priorities, but there are things as we go through that have come up as priorities for you, and others have agreed, yeah, that can go on the list, and vice versa. The last thing, if I could just say, is those first 5, they're all impacted by the org study, but they all came from my evaluation, in your direction on my evaluation. Well, I don't do any of it on my own. It affects, I have to work with our staff to get all of this accomplished, which is why these things are showing up on this list. They are a time draw for our staff.
I get it. I understand that the staff is overworked and that you're trying to figure out what you should do and what you can let go. What I'm saying is this is not 2026-28 City Council priorities work plan. That's not what it is. This is a demonstration of what's going on in City Hall, what staff is doing. So, it has to be, everything has to be done in context, but I don't need to know the details of what you're doing day to day. I don't want to know that. I want to know, I want you to hear what my priority is, and then you can say to me, no, can't be done, we're too busy.
I'm going to make a maverick suggestion. I also don't find this very useful. The more I dug into it today, multiple times, I think what would be helpful would be like to have maybe a subcommittee of the council, sit down with the city manager, review this document, and boil it down to something that's more condensed and that would be easier to talk about and not dig down further into it this evening. It's late. We have some other big meetings coming up. I'd like to see some council members work with staff to boil this down into something that's more condensed and clear. How does everybody feel about that recommendation?
I like that recommendation.
Anybody else?
I like that idea.
Well, I would like to recommend Councilmembers Nagengast and Brownstone to find time to sit down with the city manager and review this document and try to find a way to clarify.
I will accept that, and I'll let Councilmember Brownstone speak for himself. But and I'm not going to. How I looked at this was the city manager's attempt to show what he's working on too, and I get it, and how it can be. I don't need to know that because you're already working on it. I'm supposed to look what our new work plan is, but and I think maybe the subcommittee would work because part of a new work plan is you're still working on the old stuff, right? So you have to. It's all tied together. So providing maybe something clearer for hearing what you were saying, I think that can be done. I'll do it. I'm okay.
I liked seeing all this stuff. I want to know what you're working on, but I don't want it to, at least in this stage of identifying priorities, crowd that part out. Now, once we say what our priorities are, boil it down into a few reasonable, doable things, then you can say, against everything else that we're working on, here's a work plan that makes sense. So I don't really necessarily see this as a work plan. I see it as ongoing tasks mixed in with some priorities mentioned at our previous meetings in March. So I'm not trying to disparage the work that went into this, but I think we need to put it in a format that's clear and that allows the vice mayor to see the information and to see her concerns registered as well as everybody else. So I think that work would need to be done, and that will help next year too, to have your thinking on it.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that with Councilmember Nagengast.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I want to make sure that Paul and Robert are clear on what we need to do, because I'm not. This is a process we've done for 8 years, and it sounds like we're looking to shift it, which is fine. Obviously, it's got to work for you all, but I'm not clear then what you're looking for. Are we just looking for a list of what's the new things that council wants staff to focus on? Is that what we're thinking of with priorities?
I would say...
Because this is not a list of our ongoing day-to-day work.
I would say hold
totally
that
different
thought,
list.
Meet, and look into it and have that conversation together. 3 good minds working on this ought to be able to come up with an approach that allows the council more quickly to give that solid direction that you want. So I don't think we have to figure that out right here tonight, other than to say, we need something that's boiled down and clear.
Well, careful what you ask for. I mean, you want a clearer list, more concise, I assume.
Something that reflects more clearly the decision to be made, and that is to identify priorities.
But are you looking that priorities are new, right? Because we know, supposedly we know what the old priorities are being worked on, so we just need to know what our new ones are?
I think what you want to look at is not, I guess what I'm looking for is something more recommendation on formatting. What needs to be in this and what should not? What is, maybe something needs to be an attachment to a list of things that aren't on the list yet, right? Rather than having these all mixed together, the green, the blue, the black.
Yeah, it's like 3 lists in one.
Yeah.
And it needs to be broken down so that it's reasonable, and I can look at it and say, well, this is what we decided our priorities are, and how are we going to stack them up against what's possible?
So it's kind of initially a formatting exercise. You two and the city manager tasked with improving this as a decision support tool. Using your communication skills and your thinking skills.
I'm using my listening skills right now to try and be able to communicate to you what we as a group are going to want to approve. So I'm trying to, the items in black, were those taken from our work sessions? Or listening sessions, sorry, our listening sessions, is that what you can't?
Priority settings.
The priority setting session, some of them, yes.
Yeah.
Some of them have come from other places. You know, like, you didn't ask me to add number 9. But number 9 has been on the list for a couple of years, so I'm not going to take it off the list until the council tells me to. Council benefits exploration came up prior to priorities, but it is something that will take staff time, and we want to have it on a list so we don't lose it. So again, I think I'm just a little bit lost here that I think I understand that it's okay to have a list of, like, here's the special projects that we're working on or the isolated projects that we're working on versus our day-to-day, like, ongoing work. And there should be a process where you can tell us, get rid of some of this, add it. And maybe that is different than a council priority, but then I'm not sure what to call a council priority, so.
So we had a meeting where we discussed our priorities.
The priority setting workshop?
The priority setting workshop in March. And I'm assuming that that was captured, that information was captured by staff.
Yes, and it's captured here in this list.
Yes, so, but you need to capture the priorities and bring those back separately.
So the meeting we had in March didn't establish, like, okay, here's the priorities and here's the list of the stuff you're already working on. We did add, at the end of the meeting, we added and came to consensus on like 7 new things to add to the list for prioritization, and they're on here. And maybe that's part of it, is calling those out. Like, here's, based on that conversation, the additional things that were added to the list through that priority setting session. But, you know, I'll give an example. If I go to public health safety and emergency prep, the study of a healthcare district formation, that wasn't a new thing that came up in that meeting. It's something that has been ongoing discussed, but the vice mayor said, this is important to me. Can I get some support to at least add it to the list for consideration? So it's here, but it's not new. It's not some new concept. And so, I mean, I think there's work to be done with a couple of the council members and try to refine this process.
So I think
give them the document that was captured at our priority setting meeting. We have to start there. We have to start with that list.
I'm not sure I understand what document you're
We had a
talking about.
priority setting meeting. We each took turns and said what our priorities were, and that was captured. And what I'm looking at now is not that. It might be in there, but you need to tee off the report from that meeting before we move forward.
Let me make I always ask myself, in a situation like this, how did we get here? So the thing that I felt that we didn't complete in the priority session, we did list all our priorities, and we have that list. What we didn't do is we didn't take the extra time to do a process, facilitate a process where we say, well, we have all these, but let's vote on your top 3 or 4, get it done then. It's hard now without the rest, you know what I mean, without the rest of the council. It might be an easier process to actually go back and do that with the rest of the council, where we have time to, figure out what's really most important and agree on a council, especially if that's what we want to hold, staff accountable for. That seems like a fair process to complete a process, because it's just, really feels like an incomplete process, and that's why we're here. And I don't think Paul and I want to, guess what everyone's priorities would have been. Otherwise, it's we can't make those recommendations without some full council input, which
We
would
need
take.
the information from the priority setting meeting, the information that was captured.
But this kind of reflects everything that was captured, so it might be a lot quicker to get the full council's input and just bang it out, to really be clear on these priorities, right? You say there's 3 lists in one, whatever. So the whole council has to really look at, this is all the ideas we had, but we didn't really prioritize them, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and maybe that's what we're supposed to be doing now. But it's difficult to do that with all of the other information that's in here. It's too confusing to me when I look at things like staff training and development. I never said a word about that in the priority. And I think it's important. It's not that it's not important. And I don't know how much time that takes, but it's not my priority. So while I really think it's incredible what staff does accomplish, and while I really think that, that having us know all of this is just fine, it's different from what I expected tonight, which was to talk about 5 to 10 items and come to a consensus on which of those was important, and then rate them in importance, and then present it to staff and have staff say, sorry, number 2 doesn't work, or number 5 is too difficult, or that was my thinking about what was going to happen.
Well, I also feel it's maybe jumping a little over the gun, because Paul and I are also on the matrix subcommittee. And we know there'll be a lot of data coming out of that, which will actually help clarify what some of the priorities should be. In other words, we think these are what the priorities should be, and a lot of it are. But the matrix data will help validate some of these and others not. So, for example, staff training and development, that's very general. But probably from the matrix study, we'll learn, there's ways that people's roles and responsibilities could be better defined. There's ways where line managers could give feedback differently, and this is about, retaining people, making sure they got the right skills. So there's a bunch of things that could come out in terms of, there's always what the work is and then how the work gets done. And the matrix study really gets deeply into how the work gets done, not just what it is. We always kind of have this list. So from an OD perspective, it would really help to see what all of us have said, in our interviews and what staff is saying and a few others to really help inform this more. So it's just another piece, I feel, that we don't have yet. And us having a conversation with Matthew isn't going to resolve that, But, what do you think?
But some of this is Matthew's, what we're expecting him to do. Because some of these are his priorities that he's have. Right. Yes. So I think, and I'm trying to figure out, maybe it's just this heading is awkward, because I was trying to go to maybe another heading is different. So if I look at economic and community vitality, those are things you can physically see. Is that a priority, or are those just things? I'm trying to understand, when somebody says that's not my priority, is it, because I don't necessarily know your priority, but you're just saying, look, we came up, and I have my March, what date was it? March 14th. It was a Saturday we did the priority. I have that packet here, and I don't necessarily see a list. So I was trying to understand, maybe in the minutes there's something. I don't have the minutes.
The meeting report.
Yeah, I don't have the minutes. I just have
the capturing of everything we said. I think you need to see that.
Yes. And maybe that's, because I assume that's how this list got developed. But somehow you have to show it in context with what's currently being worked on. Because we have a small staff. They are working on something. In fact, one item, it's probably more than one, but I looked at one of these items that says it's in green, the automated license plate reader pilot program. Well, they're working on it, but I heard a lot from the community want us to talk about whether we're going to keep the flock cameras or not. Is that a new item, or is that something they're still working on? And I didn't want to lose it.
So this is why I'd like to have you two sit down with the city manager and work out, present the information from our priority setting meeting. You can include the stuff that's being worked on already. I'm not saying don't show that. We have to make a rational decision, but come up with a way to clarify or help our ability to prioritize, some way to present this.
So we may need a separate session then to do that. That'll take a big chunk of a council meeting. So either we have it separately, because there's other things we have to decide.
Yeah, and I don't see it happening at the May 5th meeting either, because we have other things we're going to be talking about. Yeah. So it might have to wait until the second meeting in May, I suppose, or a special meeting. But given the late hour and all this information, I don't know that we can actually make clear recommendations tonight. I sympathize or empathize with the vice mayor on this issue.
And there's things, obviously, that we'd have to account for in the budget. So, this is, the budget document's going to be coming. And this.
Yeah, I know they need that information for the budget.
Yes.
So, Madam Mayor, if I may, so it does sound like that there is at least an interest in appointing an ad hoc committee tonight to look at language in the document, format, like headings. What are the headings? Are the titles appropriate? Organization, formatting, maybe taking the list that was discussed on March 14th and separating that out, putting another list together on staff work items that are being worked on this year or next year, and separating that out from the priorities that the council discussed at the March 14th meeting, and then somehow coalescing that into something that the council can look at cohesively to decide from that document what the priorities are for the 2026, 2028 years.
That makes total sense.
And it sounds like there might be some delay in the ad hoc committee convening, but also bringing something back to the council because other things may need to come into play.
The only other thing, I'm not sure if I overheard you saying this correctly, but the council priorities are supposed to inform the budget, not the other way around. So once I didn't think I heard you right. I was just not sure. Yeah.
But also that there was comments that the organizational study may inform this process as well. So it sounds like we may have some things that need to line up first before this item can be brought back to the council.
Maybe the full item, maybe we bring back what we can. I don't know. I'm just trying to keep this moving. I don't want the budget to be held up, right? That's what.
One thing I think that would be helpful for me is, can we define what a council priority is? Because I think that's maybe where some of this bleed is the way we've done this over the years. The council priorities are more just a list of the special projects and work that staff are working on. And maybe that's part of the problem, is when you think of a council priority, it's like, here's something that we as council want to put some extra focus on, right? And we used to do that by doing it by topic. We'd pick the topics, and then the work plan would be built out underneath it. And based on feedback we got the last couple of years, it was oriented towards projects that then we would, categorizing was just to help organize it, right? So I want to make sure I understand, when you say this is a council priority, how do you define that? What does that mean to you?
That means over and above what your normal workload is as a staff to keep this city running, what I want you to spend money and attention and time on.
And is it a project, or is it a theme?
It could be a project, or it could be something like affordable housing, which has been on the list forever.
Mm-hmm.
Just a focus on an area. And I think that in our priority session, we sort of discussed a bunch of different things and came to a consensus about, I don't know, a group of things that we thought were important. I don't know if there were projects on it or not, because I don't have the list in front of me.
Could you give an example of like what one of those consensus items was from your recollection? Because I want to make sure when I'm going back into the notes and in the records that we kept from that I'm honing in the right area.
I'm not sure. One of the things that comes to my mind is a formation of a healthcare district. We did talk about that. That seemed to be a priority, but that's a project.
Right. Sewer consolidation.
So sewer water yeah.
So maybe as I work, and I don't think we need a new ad hoc. It sounds like we can use the organizational study ad hoc as a way to do this work. It's the same two people and it's connected. That maybe part of it is we do have two lists. There's a list that is context of like, here's all the non-day-to-day routine work that we're doing, special projects that we have ahead of us the next 2 years, and that's the context that I think is important. And then here are the specific limited number of additional things the council is really wanting to pursue as its priorities. Are we kind of heading in the right direction there?
Yeah, I think that would work. It's not the way we've done it before, but it is, I think it's a workable solution.
Okay. I mean, that gives me some path. Patrick, you've got something.
I just remember, I'm not trying to just push this, I just remember last year, we were talking about the Keogh watershed, Roosevelt watershed, and Pullman, but that never got prioritized. Then this year, I reached out to the people who lived there, and they came, and I got consensus from, that was like a priority. I remember bike safety and e-bikes became like a priority. I remember from those discussions. Main Street Bridge was a priority from gathering from people because we were talking about safety. I remember internet was an issue because for emergency reasons. I remember that. So there are elements in here that I see that I remember talking about, but there wasn't a lot. And I was kind of lost, I'll be honest with you, when I got like you start off, I was like, I'm kind of lost, and I got lost in the first section. And then you have to like figure out, but a lot of it was like wayfinding signage we've talked about. Downtown kiosk, that's an old one, because I was never really part of that, but I know about it, but that's an old one from a while ago. And then street furnishing policy, we've talked about that, because I brought that forward through the meetings. And then the downtown formula chain ordinance, that's new. That's something that just came about from that group, because I've known about that. And then we've always talked about parking and having a parking facility or structure, because we brought that forward. Let's put that on the agenda. So there's things here that I see that we've talked about, but a lot of things I don't really get. Like this one's kind of throwing me off. So it got confusing, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, I think I'm starting to understand the challenge here and how working with the ad hoc we can address some of those. The information all needs to be there, but it can be organized in a way to pull out what we're already working on versus you having to make some decisions about new things.
It's great to know what's going on. I mean, believe me, I think it's critical, and it's refreshing to have this kind of a list where I see all of the things that are happening. But Patrick pulled out about 6, 7 things. He didn't prioritize those things. We haven't prioritized them. Do I really care about a downtown kiosk or wayfaring sign? Maybe I don't care about them so much, and I'd rather be talking about a parking garage. Or so I think it's trying to get a list so that we can prioritize it and have it work with staff so staff can actually get these things done.
Yeah, and it goes back to the old saying, everything's a priority, nothing's a priority.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right, I think I've got some clarity and happy to work with Robert and Paul on a different approach to bring back.
So, moving on to item 12, future discussion items, possible agenda items. I think we have a full plate. Any city council reports? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.